I'm going to start this moist meter with an apology, put a little egg on my face here. As many of you know, I recently went through every single score I've ever given in the history of the moist meter since the genesis of this fine creation, and I saw some things that rattled me, shook me to my core. Some incomprehensible, awful scores given throughout the years, and I'm truly sorry for some of those. I can't control the past, but I can control the future. I make you this solemn vow, a heavenly pact to ensure that never again will I succumb to Mickey Mouse Clubhouse level forgiveness when it comes to my scores on media. I was so nice to dog shit in the past, and from now on it's nothing but a cutthroat mentality here. With all that being said, Shogun is incredible. And this isn't just me being nice, this is me being realistic. The show is amazing, top to bottom. No matter how you spin it, every measurable quality of this show is fucking extraordinary. I haven't felt this passionate about a show since early Game of Thrones seasons, and I know you see that being regurgitated by everyone and their mother and every news media outlet when they talk about Shogun, comparing it to Game of Thrones, but it's a show that really earns that comparison because early Game of Thrones is pretty much a masterclass in television. And Shogun is right up there with the greats. I was so invested in this show and its characters from the very first episode. It captured me, it drew me into the time period because so much tender love and care was put into the costumes and the set design in particular, which stood out immediately. It really does feel like it takes you on like a fucking Phil the Future time machine ride to the past where you get to see this period come to life. Now, I've already made a whole video glazing this show back when there was only like 3 episodes of it. Now that it's finished, I'm still going to be glazing this show, but this time with even more glaze. I'm going to fucking cream coat this bad boy here because it deserves it. Shogun is one of those special shows that don't really come around often, and when it does, man is it refreshing. Not that we've had some kind of drought of quality, in fact, I'm thinking we're in like a really good age for high quality shows, like we just had Invincible wrap up, which is another show I gushing grannies overed, and there's a couple more on the horizon that seem pretty good. We also just had Fallout, which was shockingly good. So, I mean, this is just another in this batch of quality that we've been getting, but this sits atop that pile. It is super good. By far the best thing about this show, in my eyes, is the writing. Oh, the writing is glorious. It feels so tight. The characters are so fleshed out with so much depth that it's hard not to care about them. The story is so deep with so many moving parts, it's pretty complex, and I do think for some viewers that might actually be a bit confusing because it is a lot to keep track of. There's a ton of characters with a ton of different motivations doing a lot of different things in different directions, so it might be a little hard to keep track of where the fuck everything is at sometimes, but I actually kind of like that. It just makes it so rich. Like, for example, there's a character named Yabushigi in here, and this is a character that's getting pushed and pulled in all kinds of different directions, fucking used by these people while he's trying to use them, but then his plan's falling through because then this guy's plan needs Yabushigi to buy into it. Meanwhile, the guy that he's pretending to be loyal to knows that he's not actually loyal, but he still kind of needs him. Like, there really is just a lot going on with, and that's just like one single character. But it's connected to so many different things. And Yabushigi in particular, it's like that scene out of every cartoon where someone steps on a rake and then it hits them in the face. They turn around and step on another rake and it hits them in the face. That's like Yabushigi's journey here the entire show. He just keeps hitting all these fucking things that keep hitting him. It's, I don't know, it's so interesting. And I think what makes it even more interesting is just how different the culture is here that's being portrayed, where honor means everything. And in this time period, death was an honorable thing, where people would choose it sometimes in order to avoid dishonor. It's so fascinating. So even in the most tense situations where people are at each other's fucking throats, like it's a political turmoil, these two people are having a huge disagreement that's inevitably going to lead to a lot of death, that disagreement is still conducted with the utmost manners. I'm talking like SpongeBob pinky out level shit. And meanwhile, it's about to condemn so many people to die. Or in another situation where there's an argument between two characters, and the argument brings dishonor to one of the parties that's involved. Well, that honor, or that dishonor, is so extreme that they end up committing seppuku. They literally kill themselves because they were dishonorable by having this argument. It's such an interesting thing to see unfold in this way. Like, there's people that are willing to die over nothing. For example, a bird. Someone had been instructed not to touch a bird, but they ended up touching that bird, and thus they were like, you know what? I've committed a great offense to my household. Please fucking execute me for it. It just seems like trivial things that people are willing to throw their lives away for. And the main character, who is not from this land originally, points that out, saying like, this is kind of madness that you would willingly throw your life away with a smile on your face and consider it a privilege to die for something so simple. Like, step on a crack, break your mama's back, and then fucking kill yourself because they asked you not to step on those cracks. It really is so fucking different. Like, you don't really see that kind of portrayal anywhere else. And it plays a huge role, obviously, in the narrative because honor really does mean everything here. Manners, following, your leader, no matter what, always being loyal. Loyalty obviously has a huge theme in this show, and it captures all of these themes in a way I haven't seen before, because I haven't seen a show that's done this time period so much justice. It really is extraordinarily well done. Now, even aside from just the extremely good writing and the really, really great story and great characters, it does have great action. It's impossible to not like swords. You're lying to yourself if you think blades are boring or lame. I know, thanks to Reddit, it's kind of gotten a bad rep, but come on. Swords will always be cool. So when people are getting killed by swords, or there's like a fight involving swords, it's always just so fun to see. And they do it really well here. There's not a lot of like sword fighting in the traditional sense where you'd see like them clashing blades and, doing like almost lightsaber-esque moves with their katanas or anything. You don't really see that in Shogun. It seems so much more grounded and realistic to how it actually happened in that time period, where it'd be like one or two moves and someone dies from it, which is sensible. So like, for example, there's an assassin that is going around killing people, and they're doing it stealthily. They're not really confronting people head on. They're doing it like in a very sneaky manner, and eventually they get killed with a single strike to the neck that was also a surprise attack on them. But of course, there is some actual like combat, where one side has these weapons against this side, and it's always like, I can't wait to die for you, let's fucking go, and they just go at it, and it's great. Like, the action, when it's here, is really good, but that's not what makes this show so special. It's 100% the writing, and also the performances. This show is super well acted. Everyone really seemed to put their heart and soul and put their 110 fucking percent into their characters here, which helps elevate everything. Really, like I said, every single component of the show is done really, really well. And it really does have some of that old school, early Game of Thrones DNA to it. And I hate to keep making this comparison, but it's hard not to, because I got the same vibes, the same thrill that I got back then, where any character could die for whatever reason. And the deaths might not always be like the most climactic thing ever, which I actually think is a good thing. So in Game of Thrones, a character could die from like an infection, like a very important character, or they could die from like one single cheap move that no one saw coming. That happens in Shogun to a lesser degree, of course. There's not as much of that because this is a show that deals with like, oh, well, we can't make this move and kill this person because it would throw this kind of political situation into turmoil, which would cause this problem and to be like the snowball effect. Like, there's a lot of inner workings on what prevents them from just going for like a fucking all-out war off rip and like just murdering and killing people. But there are some moments where a character who is an important character that we've seen from basically the beginning, who's all about like, I want battle, I want war, I want battle, and eventually he takes matters into his own hands to try and do something for the sake of his leader, and while doing so, he dies in an embarrassing fashion, where he steps on someone's robe, he slams the robe that has his leg on it, and he loses his balance and hits his head on a rock and dies. It is a shameful death, and the character that ended up killing them says as much, saying, "Where's the beauty in that death?" Because that character that had died was talking about how beautiful it would be to die on the battlefield for what he believed in and who he was led by. Like, having a death like that, which comes out of nowhere, really. Well, it doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, it builds up to him making this decision. But seeing that death happen, which no one, I think, was expecting, really did hit pretty hard. And it had a lot of weight to it. Which reminded me of when things like that would happen in Game of Thrones. That's kind of the point I was making. A little long-winded there, but it's really cool to see that, because I feel like in modern times, a lot of shows are a little afraid to do that now. Like, you have to have these characters that, if they go out fucking guns blazing and, like, blaze a glory. Whereas here, no, that's not really the case. That's not how real life works. It doesn't matter how important someone is or was in the past. They may have just fucking died in the simplest way imaginable, and they're not afraid to showcase that in this show. So yeah, I've been kind of going on about this for a little while, but as you can tell, I really liked Shogun. I don't have any complaints that I can think of here, aside from a couple of nitpicking story moments that I think were a little, like, plot hole-esque, but maybe I just didn't fully grasp what the overall plan was and why certain things needed to happen the way they did. Like, there's some character... I'm trying not to get into spoilers of it because it's very important stuff, but there were a couple moments where I was like, you didn't really need to do that because your goals were kind of aligned. You could have, like, you didn't need to have that character kill themselves. Like, you could have... I'm already kind of hinting at too much here, but there were certain moments where I thought, that didn't need to happen. That didn't make sense for why something happened. But it's also just a chance that maybe I forgot why it needed to happen or never fully understood it. Because like I said, there is a lot of moving parts of this story and a lot of, like, very deep-rooted reasons for why certain things were happening. But a couple of them I was like, no, you didn't need to let that happen. But anyway, without getting too much into, like, a spoilery territory, plugging Shogun into the Moist Meter, I think this is a must-watch show, which means I gotta give it that must-watch rating at a really crisp 95%. Fucking banger. Absolute banger. Shogun slaps. Great series. They crushed it with this. And I'm very happy that they're not doing a season 2. This is another one of those rare shows where it's not going to overstay its welcome. It's not going to just keep going and going and going for the sake of milking the property dry. They've stated that they are not doing a season 2 because they wrap everything up the way they want to in season 1. Fuck yeah. I love that. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah. The Moist Meter is a proud partner of our comic book series Godslap and Plague Seeker. Both are available at badegg.co. Link in the description. I imagine you all can guess why I'm so sweaty right now. I just got home from watching the new Fast and Furious movie, and the testosterone that was pumping through my veins watching that bad boy had me perspiring like a Redditor on OnlyFans. What a journey. I felt like the movie turned the NOS canister in my soul at full blast. Had me, fucking firing into the theater seats there. I saw it in an empty theater. I went to a little matinee today at 2:30 p.m. and no one else was there. I felt insulted on behalf of the whole family behind the movie. How could you show such disrespect and not show up to Fast and Furious at every single showing throughout opening day? But regardless, I think that is just despicable behavior. There's just some swine out there that can't appreciate high-quality art like Fast X. I can. But honestly, the serene masculinity that washed over me in this completely barren, empty theater was actually wonderful. I feel like it was the optimal experience. It felt so personal, as if I was able to connect better with all of these very well-rounded, beloved, deep characters. It felt as though Dominic Toretto lunged out from the screen, opened up his arms, and invited me, Charles, to suckle on his bosom, and then pulled out a chair at the barbecue and handed me a Miller Lite to join the family. And it felt good. The film is exactly what you're expecting. Fast and Furious is a franchise that just keeps trying to ramp up the ridiculousness. It started with Fast 5, and it's never let off the gas pedal since. So they've had, of course, like the nuclear submarine shooting into space, all of that shit. This one, once again, tries to go fucking hog wild, and it does. But I will say, This doesn't have any of those moments. Like Fast 5 has the vault, you know, the space launch, the submarine, all of that, iconic moments. This one doesn't have anything like that. Instead, the whole film has moments similar to those moments, but nothing like one particular instance. The biggest scene by far is kind of an homage to the vault scene from Fast 5, where instead of a vault going through the city and like blasting through cars and people and shit, it's a giant bomb that's rolling around Rome and about to blow up the Vatican. And it's hype, like it's cool, and that's all these movies are about. It's very self-aware, it knows it's cheesy, it knows it's ridiculous, and it embraces that with a smile on its face. And I appreciate it. I definitely did have fun and giggled to myself at the like absolute outrageousness of a lot of the scenes. But even with that being said, there are some things that are just downright shit in the film. Like, there's just some like awful moments that had me rolling my eyes. But before getting into that, let's talk about some things that I enjoyed. I liked Jason Momoa's character. He plays Dante. This isn't a spoiler, it's in the trailer for the movie. He's the son of the big bad from Fast 5, and he's out for revenge. The very cookie-cutter, formulaic, Fast and Furious plotline. Every single person in the world is out for revenge on Dom in some way. The entire criminal underworld wants to fuck Dom in the face and his whole family because they don't like him. Or he's done something to someone that is somehow connected to them, because everyone in the Fast and Furious universe is connected to Dom. He's like Genghis Khan, where Genghis Khan like populated half of the planet or something during his heyday. That's Dominic, but with like criminals. Every criminal in the world somehow ties back to Dom in some way. For example, in this film, Dominic goes across the fucking world and somehow runs into someone that is related to someone that Dominic used to fuck. So, like, the Toretto DNA is spread very far across the globe. Like, he is this singularity that pulls everyone in that universe towards him. Which is, of course, goofy and fun, but regardless, let's get back on track. The main villain, Jason Momoa, son of the big bad, wants revenge. He was a cool character. This is a Jason Momoa I've never seen before. He really tried to like channel some kind of Joker character for it, and it was so silly that I loved it. Like, he just goes really outrageous with the whole performance. You know, he'll be like, Dom, you ever heard of Mozart? Well, you best start believing in ballet, Dom, 'cause you're in one. And then he starts like busting out ballet moves and then directs a sniper to start shooting at him. Like, there's even like a Joker moment where Dominic's beating the shit out of him, pops one of his teeth out, and he's like, ha 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 ha, Dom, you're punching me just the way I wanted you to punch me. Have you ever heard of birds, Dom? Do you know birds? Like, he just like comes up like the stupidest shit. And he's always talking to, like, he talks to corpses. He's very quirky. He's the quirk master. And it's so stupid, like in the best way. It's very clear Jason Momoa is just having as much fun as possible. Like, he stabs someone and then starts like sucking on the blood like a popsicle. It's so dumb, but I really liked it. There's even moments where he reminds me of Maximilian Pegasus from the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because for some reason Dante, that's Jason Momoa's character, calls him Dommy Boy constantly, just like Pegasus, where he calls Yugi Yugi Boy. Like, I was half expecting him to trap his family soul in a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card in this movie. It was so fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I thought he was cool. Well, cool is probably not the right word. I thought he was fun. But yeah, of course, the bread and butter of Fast and Furious is its action. This is filled to the brim with action. But man, I've got to tell you, even suspending disbelief, it is really frustrating how every single enemy is this like armored to the gills tactical monster, like the fucking Juggernaut from Modern Warfare 2. And yet, they're still just punching them in the face, like, with their helmet on. Like, Dominic and his friends just punch their helmet over and over, and somehow that's incapacitating them. What the fuck is the point of the helmet if it can't even block a punch, or stop you from getting hurt from a punch? It's crazy how often that happens. Like, they're not even getting shot most of the time, they're just getting, like, punched and kicked in the legs, and like, oh shit, my leg! And they're dead. Like, every single henchman here is just one sneeze away from being defeated. Like, there was never any stakes in this film. Obviously, it's Fast and Furious. Everyone's got plot armor. Everyone's got God mode turned on. They're all fucking invincible, surviving the most ridiculous shit. And they never miss a shot, and their punches can shatter diamonds. Which is fine, but just stop putting them in armor. It's so fucking dumb. Like, that actually kind of grinded my ass a little bit. And then another thing I really didn't like is its reliance on flashbacks. So they'll take you to, like, Fast and Furious 5, and they'll show you a scene that we've all seen and enjoyed, and then they'll be like, but did you know Dante was right here? And it's the same scene, but then Dante's in the background, like, fucking smoldering. And then they'll do that 20 times throughout the film. And then when they took the vault, Dante was in the bathroom in this stall. And he opens the stall door. Like, they just keep doing these flashbacks to these moments as if, like, Dante was there the whole time, and it's really goofy. And then they'll do that for other characters. And then someone you thought was not there was actually there in the stall next to Dante. And then Dante opens the stall door, and then the stall door next to him opens, and it's like the other guy. So it's like, we got you. Like, it's supposed to be this eureka moment that catches everyone off guard, and it's just an ass pull. Like, I have no doubt this whole film's production was all of the action. Let's write all of the action. Ah, shit, now we have to have some kind of story. All right, we'll just make it up as we go. Because that's what it feels like half of the time this film's running. It gets a bunch of different plot lines going in different directions that introduce all sorts of problems that don't get solved and don't have any real reason to even exist in the first place. And then they'll just come out of nowhere with some kind of half-baked explanation or, like, some kind of goofy motivation that ties back into a flashback. It's pretty fucking dumb. Like, even for Fast and Furious standards, the story's pretty fucking stupid. But that's fine, because who cares, right? Again, no one's going to Fast and Furious for a profound, thought-provoking story or character piece. But yeah, I do want to point that out. And I also do appreciate that they tried to bring street racing back in. There is a whole street racing scene, like, but it doesn't work super well. It's kind of cringy a little bit. But I do like that they tried to bring in some street racing. They've done that before as well, but here they really gave a spirited attempt, but I don't think they really landed it all that well. Because the street race doesn't last very long, and I don't think it was very interesting. But I like that they gave it a whirl. Because I still think the street racing component of Fast and Furious was really special and really fun. But I do still like the over-the-top nature of what it's become. Anyway, there's not a whole lot to really digest and dive into. You get exactly what you're expecting. A whole cast of fucking Avengers, superhuman superheroes with cars, fucking blowing up helicopters with cars, using cars like there's some kind of, like, aircraft almost. All kinds of high-tech weaponry that looks like Jimmy Neutron designed it in a shed. So you have like this makeshift plane out of 5 pieces of wood that John Cena flies around on. It's craziness. And that's what you want with Fast X. But if you're someone that really doesn't care for the direction Fast and Furious has been going with trying to one-up itself with over-the-top action jumping the shark, you're going to hate this movie. Plugging it into the moist meter, I'm just going to give it a nice 70%. I had fun. I think most people have fun if you go in there with the right expectations and the right mindset. They're just going to shove popcorn in your face and have a good laugh and a good time. Like, that's what it's all about with Fast and Furious, and I think it delivers. Man, some of the dialogue, though, is awful. Let me point that out real quick. There are some horrible stinkers of lines in this film. Like, I really feel like some chat GPT generated lines at moments in here. But anyway, yeah, overall, fun film. That's really about it. See ya. Huge thanks to ourselves for sponsoring this moist meter. Godslap is a comic series written by myself, Jackson, Matt, Danny, and Aubrey Sitterson. It follows the story of a character named Ace, who's an extremely powerful slapper in a world where slapping is king. Issue 3 just dropped. It's all available at badegg.co, and shit is starting to pop off. Ace is being hunted by a mysterious foe named Defister, who, after swan diving through a hospital, picks up Ace's trail and hunts him to the ends of the earth with his sidekick Olfactor. And also, our newest comic series, Plague Seeker, just came out. Issue 0 is available at badegg.co. It's written entirely by myself and edited by Jackson. It's set in a world 1,000 years after an apocalyptic event known as the Calamity. An asteroid hits Earth, and it brought with it mutations that changed all of its inhabitants. Now the world is infested with things called plagues, and atop the food chain sits 8 great plagues that control the entire world, and only one man stands against them, the Plague Seeker, who has an insatiable appetite to devour those 8 great plagues. So all of this is available at badegg.co, so please check it out. See ya.
This episode of Moist Meter brought to you by Godslap. Issue 3 is out right now at godslapbook.com. You can find links below in the description. Go check it out.
Initiating moisture.
John Wick is more than just an outstanding franchise. It's a nearly perfect franchise. Not only does it not have a bad movie, it doesn't even have a bad moment in any of the movies. At least nothing that I can think of at the top of my head. Even John Wick's skin in Fortnite is the best skin in that game. Everything from John Wick, the universe, and everything around it is just high quality. It just oozes beauty. And I am happy to say John Wick 4 is the best one in the entire franchise. This movie is unreal. It puts the fill in film, because I was filling my fucking pants watching this one. This one was incredible. Everything you have come to expect from John Wick is not only present, but it's done even better in this film. Somehow they just progressively get better. Usually most films immediately fall off going into the sequel. Somehow John Wick as a franchise just gets better and better and better. Like, it's evolving. Everything you have heard about John Wick 4 is not only accurate, it's underselling it. There is not a moment in this movie where I wasn't having fun. Now, of course, you're going to have to suspend disbelief, and I already can see a couple people whining about it, like, why did John Wick activate infinite ammo glitch during the motorcycle chase scene? And it's like, okay, yeah, so what, he shot 50 bullets from the single mag in that pistol. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? It's still really cool. And it is realistic for the most part when it comes to a lot of its action, like the way the fights play out. It's not like John Wick is just like this immortal, invincible killing machine. He is damn near immortal, but he's not invincible. In fact, even when fighting just common grunts like Old Pop Wiggleberry, who picked up his blunderbuss and charges him for the bounty, like, he'll get damage from that. Like, he fights hordes and hordes of bad guys, and all of them get their licks in. And he feels it, and you can see it on him. He wears and tears, he's not in his prime, but he is still an absolute killing machine. This film never lets off the gas for even a millisecond. Anytime John Wick steps outside, if he found like $1 on the ground and he goes to collect it, he's immediately ambushed by 50 assassins and he has to murder all of them. And it is always creative how he does it. It is so satisfying watching John Wick beat ass. But not only is it satisfying to watch him beat ass, they introduced 2 new characters that are equally fun to watch. Donnie Yen is in this film. He plays Kane, and Donnie Yen is one of my favorite action actors. I've actually followed his career ever since Shanghai Nights. I was blown away by his performance in that film as a kid, so I followed pretty much most of his movies. Killed it as Ip Man, but has been kind of highly underrated in like the Western spotlight, I would argue, but he is always a joy to watch, and he shines in this film. He plays a blind assassin who's friends with John Wick, and he is so fucking good here. And the two of them, you know, they banter a bit, I guess as much as John Wick's character allows him to, because John Wick doesn't say much. He's a man of few words, more of just a man of focus and raw ass. So, you know, Donnie Yen will be cracking some jokes at him, and, you know, John Wick will go, yeah, no. And it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, like, it's just fun. I don't know, it's cool. And there's also another new character they introduced called Mr. Nobody, and he has a dog that's with him, and that's kind of his shtick. He's great at tracking down John, and his dog kills people. He's also an expert at hand-to-hand combat and shooting and killing. Like, there is no bad characters in this film, because all of them are really fun to watch. The choreography here is the best in all of cinema. John Wick has the best stunt team, the best choreographers when it comes to its action, and the best way of filming it. Towards the end of this movie, there is probably one of my top 10 favorite action sequences I've ever watched. I don't want to spoil it, but it's this sequence of John Wick when he's getting attacked from all angles in this building, and they bring the camera up. So now you have this top-down view that almost looks straight out of a video game of John Wick going room to room, clearing it with a dragon's breath fucking shotgun. So he's going through, killing people with this dragon's breath shotgun. They're getting lit on fire. He's fucking triple tapping them, like absolutely blowing them to pieces. And he's still, you know, beating their ass with the hand-to-hand combat, like throwing them around, getting them in an arm bar, breaking their arm off, shooting them with the dragon's breath. It's so cool. And this camera follows it around top down through like 6 different rooms like that. And it is so, so good. It is so creative with how it films its action, and it is never disorienting. With how much action goes on in these films, you would think at some point they'd get like shaky cam and be hard to make out what's going on. Never the case in this franchise. And in John Wick 4, it's the best it's ever been. I cannot praise this movie enough. Now let's talk about the narrative. I love the universe of John Wick. I love the table hunting John down. John has broken all the rules. He's, gumming for scalps now. The Continental, the way the whole world is set up to allow all of these assassins to exist in it and make it feel like believable and alive, I think is done really well. This film has a pretty strong narrative, not so much like with the craziness or like the depth of it, but in the way that it acts as a vehicle to get you to interesting locations for interesting, fun fights with great set pieces and incredible moments. The characters I do think are strong, though. I still think Winston is a great character. I think he's really fun to watch. I love his lines as well. They do introduce a new villain here, whom I like, but is never really like scary or intimidating because he kind of just delegates everything to other people to do it for him. So he never really has a ton of moments where it's like, whoa, shit, this guy's a fucking menace or anything. It's just, oh, this guy's got a lot of money, so he's paying people to do all of his work for him. Kind of a bitch, right? But I don't think he's bad by any means, and he has cool lines. I still like how he called John Wick a ghost looking for his graveyard. I don't know why, but that one just kind of stuck out to me. It's like, oh, that was kind of badass. But that's like the only time he says anything super badass. Other than that, it's usually him just like, hey, you go kill Wick for me. And that's the extent of his like presence. So he never really comes across as like this, ass-beating machine on the same level as the rest of the cast. But I don't think he was supposed to either. Overall, though, I do like the narrative. I thought it was pretty strong. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, this is a bit of a nitpick, but it is something I do want to call attention to. There is a couple moments in this film where it like, even when suspending disbelief, you have to be like, huh, what the fuck? Why is that the case? This isn't a spoiler either. So, like, for example, they're fighting in this club, and John Wick is full on shooting people in the face. Like, he grabs someone's head, he fucking puts the gun underneath their mouth and blows their fucking brains out on the dance floor. And people take notice. Like, you can see the people around him watching. He's stabbing people with hatchets. He's shooting people in front of them. And the people are not only watching, they just keep dancing as all of this is happening. And the music is playing. It's a really cool scene, but it's like, huh, these are just normal people. They've established that this is like kind of a normal club. All of those like random civilians aren't assassins. And yet they're just watching people get brutally murdered in front of them, and they continue to fucking whip and nay-nay out there on the dance floor. So it's one of the things that like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why wouldn't they like run away? And then eventually they do run away, but for no reason almost. John Wick has killed 30 different dudes on the dance floor in front of all these people. They've even formed like this high school fight circle around it, watching John Wick kill some of these guys. And they're still just celebrating it and dancing. And then towards the end, they run away because John Wick kills someone a little too brutally. And they're like, oh shit. Oh, now it's serious. And that happens again towards the end of the film where they're fighting on a crowded street. And there's just a full-blown shootout, fully automatic rifles going crazy. Cars getting blasted as they're going by, people getting thrown into cars as they're getting blasted, or as they're getting, driving by. It's just pandemonium. And it goes on for like fucking 20 minutes of people just getting hit by cars that keep coming through, or shooting through cars, using car doors, using cars as weapons. But these are normal civilians driving the cars. They're just on a public road. You would think when the shooting started, people would stop going through that intersection that this fight is happening at. You would think the cars would be like, oh fuck, and then swerve the other way instead of just keep like going straight into the gunfire. Because again, they are normal people. And there's people just getting thrown through the windshield of these vehicles, and then still other cars are just, come strolling right on through, just zooming by. So it's just one of those things where it's like, huh, it doesn't make any sense. Why would they stay there? Why would they do that? Not that it's a big deal, it is just a nitpick. I wanted to point that out because it was very silly, and I think it was supposed to be silly. Like, I think it was very self-aware with it, but it's something I would like to call attention to. It's not like a big complaint by any means, but I do have one actual complaint. I do have a complaint, and I can't get into the specifics because it's a spoiler, but they've done one thing in this movie that I commend them on, but I don't think it landed as well as it needed to. When you see the film, I think you'll know what I'm referring to, and that's just kind of my take on it. It's something that I feel they've wanted to build and they've wanted to really flesh out, but I just don't think it hit as hard as it wanted to. And I do think that that's a little underwhelming. I don't think it was bad by any means, but it was just a little underwhelming how a certain moment played out. So that's all I can really talk about without spoilers. But again, I don't think it was anything bad or anything close to that. Plugging John Wick 4 into the Moist Meter, I'm so happy to give this a 95%. I think this is an absolute must-see movie. This is a movie that is just beyond exciting to watch. It is like non-stop, super fun, beautiful, excellent, over-the-top action with a really great cast of characters that all get amazing moments to shine and really pretty shots. There's some really nice shots in here as well that I'd like to point out. I love this movie. I think it is the best in the franchise. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. That's about it. See ya. As most of you know, we started our own comic book series called God Slap. Everyone who's read God Slap so far has unanimously agreed that it's the best comic ever produced, and God Slap is well on its way to becoming the biggest name in all of comics, overthrowing Marvel within the next 5 years, according to recent scientific projections that I'm pulling out of my ass. It's a passion project created by myself, Jackson, Danny, and Matt, and we brought in an industry veteran named Aubrey Sitterson to help write it with us, and we're extremely proud of what we've created. Issue 1 and 2 are already out, and Issue 3 came out today, as of right now. Issue 3 is available at godslapbook.com, and per usual, this is the standard cover, but we also have 2 limited edition variants, which will only exist until they're sold out, and then they'll never be reprinted. So they're available at godslapbook.com.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I'm just going to go ahead and be extremely honest up front, because lying is a sin, and I don't want to sin. I couldn't even finish Book of Boba Fett. I found it to be excruciatingly boring, so I didn't get to like episode 5 and 6, which apparently it just turns into The Mandalorian and is good again. I didn't even bother. I stopped after episode 3. Once I bore witness to the slowest speed chase in television history with the Vespa scooter gang chasing through the streets, I thought this is really where Star Wars dies, truly. So I went into Obi-Wan Kenobi with very low expectations, but I'm a big fan of Ewan McGregor's Kenobi, so I was hoping they'd do him justice. And now that the show's wrapped up, I can confidently say they kind of did almost. So the show, I don't think is great. But I also don't think it's bad. It's existing in this very weird limbo of mid. And that's not a word that I've ever actually used in a video before, but I can't describe the show any better than that term. The first 4 episodes I think are very weak. But I do like Ewan McGregor's performance in them. I just think the story beats are kind of lackluster. And that's setting aside the goofiness of like the Leia chase scene, which has already become notorious, where it's quite literally like a Power Rangers moment where Leia's like running through a forest being chased and the bad guys are tripping over tree branches and, you know, they run into a tree and they're like oh, dag nabbit, I guess we'll never get her now. And it's like supposed to be an intense chase and it's just so silly. And then they do another chase in episode 2, which is equally as silly. And then in the following episodes, there's a hallway fight scene where the stormtroopers are like point blank with Obi-Wan and there's a secret droid behind him. He's cornered, you know. How's Obi-Wan gonna get his way out of this one? It's gonna be really badass. But it's not. The stormtrooper shoots the droid shoots the stormtrooper, and then the other stormtrooper shoots at Obi-Wan, who is holding his lightsaber stationary the entire time as he slowly, like, old man waddles up to the stormtrooper and slices him. The point I'm making is there's a lot of like bad moments, whether it's a choreography related thing or just like a bad idea. In that same episode, Obi-Wan escapes with Leia by putting her in a trench coat and they walk closely to each other. Literal cartoon shit, like something you'd see in Hey Arnold when they're trying to sneak into a PG-13 movie. There just are really not great moments in the show. But even aside from those like scenes that aren't good, I still think overall the narrative that they deliver for Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't justify its existence as a show. It doesn't really add anything to the universe to see these things unfold. It just seems highly unnecessary. They also heavily advertised Hayden Christensen in this series, so I was expecting, as most people were expecting, him to play a pretty crucial role in it, but he's really only visible in a few scenes throughout the show. Everything else is him in costume, and most of the time it's not him in costume. He has, I believe, 2 stand-ins that also do the costume work. So Hayden Christensen wasn't exactly like a pivotal piece of the narrative here either, despite them using him so heavily leading up to it, which I just found weird. I don't necessarily think it's like a bad thing or anything. I like Hayden Christensen and would have liked to see more of like the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin back before everything happened with Order 66, but they don't really explore that very much. The show, like I said, the first 4 episodes, I just don't think are great, but episode 5 has a different writer who came in. I believe it's the same writer as Wall-E, and I think they did an outstanding job. I think episode 5 is by far the best episode in the show, and just an actual good, great episode. They brought a lot of things together and made them work. The choreography got better. When there's a fight, it was better to watch. Everything changed with episode 5, and it was good. I appreciated what they did with some of the characters. The show introduced some new Inquisitors here, like Reva. And Reva, I think, could have been a great character, and by the end of the show, around episode 5 and 6, she does become an interesting character, but up until then, with the first 4, she's just way too over the top. Every single one of her lines is delivered like it's supposed to be the most menacing thing ever, and it becomes overwhelming. So like every time she's talking to the other Inquisitors, "We have to lock everything down in order to catch Obi-Wan Kenobi so I can murder him." And it's just like too much, to the point where you stop caring about the character, and they just become kind of like a silly, goofy villain as opposed to one that you're afraid of or care about. But in episode 5, they completely changed the tone of the character and makes it a lot better. So I think the character at the end of the show was good. However, in the beginning, not so much. Overall, the show just has 4 bad episodes, 1 good, like actual good episode, and the finale is an alright episode. It has a problem with it that I'm not doing spoilers, or at least trying not to do any major spoilers, but it suffers from an issue that I think a lot of people are going to take with it after watching it, and it's one that people have complained about in the past before. And there's no real explanation for a decision that gets made, other than the fact that the decision couldn't be made due to the placement of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars universe. Without giving too much away, it's hard to talk about without spoilers. But I do think overall the finale was serviceable. I thought it actually did a great job of like kind of sending it out commendably. It had a wholesome conclusion that makes sense in the universe, and though I don't think anything gets added to Star Wars canon as a whole thanks to this show, it at least made it seem like it mattered to a certain extent. Like we got a little bit of, fun with characters that we've grown to like. I think most people enjoy Ewan McGregor as Kenobi. In the prequels, I think he was definitely the best part, and it's just nice to see him reprise the role and do well with it in this, because like I said, I think he has a great performance here, even if the material he works with is a bit weak. I also think there's a bit of a disservice done to Darth Vader. They initially introduce him and do a great job with it. I think he comes in episode 3, and he's just going through a village, just fucking blasting everyone, innocent people, just very slowly and scarily walking towards his destination. They do a great job of setting up how intimidating and powerful this character is. However, that's the only time they make him scary and intimidating, I feel. After that, he doesn't really do a lot right. Like, there's even times where he just lets Obi-Wan go for no reason. So I do think they knocked him down a couple pegs and nerfed him a bit here. But when he does fight, I think they do a good job of showing his power there. Another thing I also appreciate about this show is it's finally not just solely taking place on a desert planet. They finally go other places and spend a lot of time outside of desert areas, which is it's just such a nice breath of fresh air. I am so fucking tired of everything Star Wars related being in a goddamn desert. Disney is getting so much bang for their buck, so much mileage out of the same desert scenes or sets that they've been using for fucking years. They are absolutely just recycling the same goddamn sets and repurposing them slightly for these shows. I am very happy, elated, that this has multiple locations that aren't desert related or desert adjacent or anything like that. Thank God. And of course, when talking about Star Wars, you have to mention the soundtrack. The score here is great again. I mean, honestly, Star Wars music is just some of the best there is, honestly. I've always been a fan. John Williams has always fucking killed it. And the soundtrack to Obi-Wan Kenobi I also think is slapping. And I just always like to mention that when at least talking about Star Wars because it's iconic music. Plugging Obi-Wan Kenobi into the moist meter, I'm giving it a 50%. Like I said, I think the show's mid. There are 4 lackluster episodes, 1 great episode, and then 1 good episode. It's very short. If you take away the intro, the recap, and the credits, most of these episodes are like 38 minutes long. Maybe like 45 on their longest ones. It's not a whole ton of content to begin with. So overall, I'd sum up the Obi-Wan Kenobi show as underwhelming. But I mean, it's serviceable, it's watchable, and there are a lot of fun moments to be had while watching it. But again, it seems like it was a highly unnecessary spin-off here, and it also doesn't feel like there was a whole ton of content with it, considering the length of the series. But yeah, that's about it.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new James Bond film, No Time to Die. James Bond is a franchise that's pretty near and dear to me. As a kid, my parents had like the entire set of James Bond films on VHS, and I watched them all the fucking time. Specifically, GoldenEye. I must have rewatched that movie 100 times, and that movie still holds up today. That shit still slaps ass hard. It is so good. And of course, the games back then on the N64, oh, classics. So James Bond is definitely a franchise that's always gotten me excited and made me feel nostalgic. Even when new ones come out, it's always like getting to revisit an old friend. And Daniel Craig era Bond films are extremely good. I think they're very high quality, albeit very different from the earlier Bond films. His are far darker and take themselves more seriously, but I still enjoy them. And this is the last movie to conclude that era of Daniel Craig as Bond, and I think the movie does a nice job of wrapping it all up. I think it's a satisfying conclusion, albeit not perfect by any means, but still a really enjoyable ride one last time with Daniel Craig as Bond. So let's get into it. Daniel Craig plays a much more vulnerable Bond this time around. The movie starts with him being retired, and we get to see what that looks like for him. And surprise, surprise, it looks a lot like when he's not retired, where he's getting fucking blasted and peppered with bullets all hours of the day. Shit's going wild and wacky. He's jumping off of bridges just to survive. People around him just getting hit by cars and executed in the streets. Fucking mangled corpses littered everywhere. So, retirement's kind of shitty, to be honest. But we get to see him be far more emotional this time around because he's spending his time with a woman that he loves, and we get to see what James Bond caring for someone really looks like. For the longest time, James Bond, not just Daniel Craig era, but James Bond in general, has been a character where every movie he fucks a different woman, and then the woman will die, and he's just like, shucks, what in tarnation, she's dead? Who was that again? Oh, yeah, we had sex once, I don't really care. Like, he gets over it real quick. Even if they have, like, a connection that seems strong in the movie, when they die, it's just like, he'll kick some sand and be like, damn, and then move on, and, they never really address it again. It's completely different this time around, whereas in other Bond films, James will get told, like, hey, remember that girl that you were in love with, like, 5 minutes ago? Well, she fell into a wood chipper, and she's dead now. And James is just like, a wood chipper? Oh, no, yucky. Well, I'm gonna go get a martini now. And then everyone just forgets about her. This time, this is woman he will do anything for. And we get to see that side of him where he's emotional. We get to see what him caring about someone looks like, which is something that I can't recall ever really being explored that thoroughly in the James Bond franchise. And I think it's nice. It's good to see that here, to have that kind of development with the Daniel Craig James Bond character. And I also do welcome that they added a little more lightheartedness to some of the scenes. Like I said, the Daniel Craig era has been much darker, which I think is fine. I think that's great. But it's also nice to have a little bit of that campiness from the originals kind of shine through sometimes here. They'll have some goofy lines out of nowhere, like he'll just murder someone and then make a joke about it, like, yeah, I blew this guy's mind, and his fucking brain matters all over the place. It's nice to see that campiness. It's not like super prevalent in the film. It's not all the time, but when it's there, it's like a nice little refreshing treat that I think a lot of Bond fans will appreciate. Really, overall, I had a great time watching this movie. Like I said, it's not perfect, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I think the narrative here and the choices they made with the story were really smart. So they bring a lot of familiar faces back. Spectre's the main antagonist here. That's not a spoiler. You know, you're getting a lot of Spectre stuff going on. But then, as it continues to evolve, you get to be introduced to a couple of new faces here. And I think one of them that's very strong is, of course, the one that most of you are familiar with from the trailers, Rami Malek. He plays really the big bad guy, the raid boss here. And I think as a character, he's a bit weak, but the performance from Rami really helps elevate it. The character, I think, is a bit silly at times. They really like plants, and they're not happy about stuff, so they're going to use plants to take their revenge and like hurt people because of plants. And with plants, it's just kind of it's a little goofy sometimes. And I think some of the things the character does and says are very, very silly. I don't want to get into spoilers. I still think overall it's a villain that's pretty good. It's definitely a strong final villain, just a bit goofy at times. But anyway, I don't have any real complaints about the story. One thing I was worried that might happen with the film is that the 007 replacement, now this isn't a spoiler, this is also in the trailers, since 007 was assumed dead or retired, they do have a replacement for him. I was a bit worried that they were going to be the focal point of the film and James would take a backseat to his own movie. I was kind of expecting that because we've seen it before in a couple of films, but I was happy to see that they really share the stage well together. The new 007 and James Bond, they work really well together, and when they're fighting and beating ass and, you know, blasting skulls, it's really great to see that. I think she does a great job. She's never like, in your face, James, you fucking suck, you're old and wrinkly and you smell like dick. She's pretty respectful of him. It's like a playful banter between her and James Bond when they're on screen, and it evolves into a pretty solid chemistry between the two of them when you get to the final act. So I really thought they did a good job with her character. And one thing that this movie does extraordinarily well with is action. The set pieces here are fucking beautiful most of the time, and the action is great. It's really grounded in reality. There's nothing like outlandish here that happens, and it's never like hard to look at where it's jarring cuts that make it really difficult to see what's actually going on. It doesn't obscure the action. You get to just watch James Bond be a badass. You get to watch current 007 be a badass, and you're never like bored. There's a character in here that I wish they had more of, and I don't think this is a spoiler, she's in the trailer, played by Ana de Armas, I believe her name is. I think that's correct. She plays a character that James Bond meets, and then they work together in order to just fucking obliterate an entire town, and she is great. Like that entire fight sequence where her and James are working together, I thought was spectacular. All of the action in this movie is just so good. James just being like the ultimate killing machine, 007 also just going wild on a bunch of bad guys. Like, what more could you want from James Bond besides beautiful action and a fun ride? And I think this delivers on that for sure. Now, I want to get to my complaints, though. I think one of the big things that this movie kind of fumbles with is getting from point A to point B. Like, to me, sometimes it feels like things are a bit off, as if like things were cut together incorrectly. So you'll go from one thing to the next, and nothing that really bridges that gap. It's hard for me to explain without getting into spoilers, which I don't really feel like doing for this one. It's just sometimes there's like a lack of reason behind things that happen, in my opinion. Like, maybe I missed it, like maybe I'm just too fucking stupid sometimes, but I feel like some of the plot elements here just don't add up. Alright, fuck it. Real quick spoiler warning, because this is the one that I want to talk about. So spoiler warning, let's get that out of the way. Okay, and now I want to talk about it. So one of the biggest things that happens at the beginning of the movie is James and Madeline, they're hanging out. They're enjoying retirement together. They're madly in love. They're making out. They're fucking and shit. And then he goes and visits the grave of Vesper, which is a character that you'll know from the previous Bond films. He goes and visits her grave, and then all of a sudden an explosion happens. The grave blows up right in his face. He gets sent back, and then he's dazed, and then getting hunted by all kinds of people, all bad guys after him. And then he goes back to Madeline and thinks he's been betrayed by her, so he sends her on a train, never to see her again. And then it's revealed in a big twist that she never betrayed him. It was actually Blofeld from Spectre. And my immediate question when this was revealed is, why? Like, he just randomly placed a bomb at that gravesite, hoping James would go visit it at some point, and then he did, and then finally this plan gets to spring into action. Like, what the fuck was the point? Is it just like an epic prank or something? And his explanation is even sillier. He's like, I knew you would suspect her. And then I wanted you to live in a world that's as lonely as the one you put me in. Because he abandoned the girl that he loved, thinking that he had been betrayed by her. And it's like, that's such a gamble. Like, you know, there's a very good chance he just would never go visit that grave. Ever. And there's also an even smaller chance that he would visit the grave while you also have bad guys nearby and a bomb that's been waiting there for God knows how long. You know, it could have been a dud for how long it must have been, just like collecting dust. It's very silly. And it's also dumb in retrospect because she even says, why would I betray you, James? And he never has an answer for it. So he never stops to ask himself, why would she betray him? He just immediately assumes she must have, without even considering the alternatives of maybe it was someone else of the millions and millions of people that are hunting him. Maybe it was one of them that don't like him, as opposed to the girl that's doing everything for him, staying by his side, and then again asking him, challenging him, like, why would I do this, James? And he never even bothers to even like think about it. He's just like, yeah, I got betrayed, fuck. Can't trust women out here, I guess. Like, it's just a bit weird. Okay, spoilers are over. So to me, there's just certain things about the plot that don't work, they don't add up, and it just gets a little off the rails and a bit silly. It's also a really long movie. It's almost 3 hours. It's 2 hours, 43 minutes. So strap in for a long ride with this one. And also get used to seeing James just eat explosions. The amount of times like a grenade will go off in his goddamn stomach and he'll just get blown back and be like, yeah, that's fine. I'm good. Like, ears are ringing a little bit, but he cleans them out with his finger and he's back to normal, is shocking. You know, he's blown up in this movie constantly. Literally sitting on just dynamite, and he'll just be fine when it blows up. So also get used to seeing that, because that happens like 3 or 4 times in this one. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. Plugging No Time to Die into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it a nice 85%. That's a little high, I think, like maybe an 85%. I really enjoyed it, but there are things here that I don't think worked super well for the film. But overall, it's hard not to really appreciate what it did. I think this was a great finale to the Daniel Craig era of Bond. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I had a big smile on my face to see it all play out. And I know Daniel Craig has said he's really tired of playing James Bond at some point, or at least I read that. But he did such a great job with this one. I think he did it justice, and he really put it all on the line to give a great conclusion to a character that a lot of people really like. So I think the movie's good. I had a good time with it, and that's about it. I'm a man who values hygiene, but not just good hygiene, the best hygiene, which is why I use Dr. Squatch. Dr. Squatch has the best products to really take your shower game to the next level. They just provide you with high-performing, high-quality soaps that use natural ingredients with really great scents. The one that I've been using is the Wood Barrel Bourbon. This is my fresh one. I have a couple of these, and I've been really enjoying that one. It makes you feel like a man and smell like a champion. For a long time, I've used liquid soap, but ever since trying Dr. Squatch, it makes me not want to ever go back to that, because Dr. Squatch is just the best bar of soap I've ever tried. So if you're interested in trying Dr. Squatch products for yourself, use code MOIST and click the link in the description below to get up to 20% off of orders of $20 or more. It's code MOIST and clicking the link in the description below for 20% off of orders of $20 or more at Dr. Squatch.
Moist Meter was brought to you by Amazon Music. Sign up for free below using our referral code.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Fast and Furious 9. This is a franchise that's known for family and fucking, and it welcomes you into the fucking family with open arms. Fast and Furious 9 follows the exact same pattern the previous 4 or 5 have, where it's just extremely silly and over the top. But unlike the previous entries in the franchise, I think this one really misses the mark. Apparently the writer for the other movies where they really started going fucking wild didn't work on this one, and I can actually feel it because this movie seems like it's doing its best to be like a college humor parody of what Fast and Furious was perceived to be on Twitter. It does everything people joked about, but in a bad way. Like, it's not fun to watch. Like, this movie has constant shit going on, like literally always jingling keys in front of your face, and yet you're probably going to be bored watching it. There is no tension in this movie and no stakes. Watching this movie made it feel like I was watching a child play with action figures and Hot Wheels. It just, there's no weight to anything. There's characters that'll just get thrown through fucking cars and metal billboards and shit, and they won't even react. It's like everyone's just made out of adamantium. But even still, it's not enough to be that entertaining, and I think it's because there is absolutely no stakes or tension. Yes, in the universe, there's stakes, like the whole thing is about this weapon that can hack everything, hack the world, hack your fucking grandma's vibrator, your AOL account. It's not safe anymore because we can hack it with this weapon. So, like, there's stakes in the world, but when you're watching it as an audience member, you know that nothing's gonna happen to any of the main characters at all. They make it very clear. Like, there's just no... At any point, any moment where you're like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen next, or wow, how are they going to get out of this one? Because they always get out of it in the most cartoonish way possible. There are scenes where Dominic Toretto is like holding 2 full-grown men in body armor up over his head and like plowing them together like he's the Hulk. He's just throwing them over the railing. Like everyone's like a balloon animal to these characters. It's so weird. Like it's not like enjoyably weird or silly though, whereas the other Fast and Furious movies have been. And I think it's because they really wanted to just keep one-upping themselves with the craziness, but now they have nowhere to go. So that thrill, that shock factor of, oh my god, they're fighting a fucking submarine. Holy shit, Godzilla's here. Dominic Toretto's gonna have to beat his ass using cars and family. Like that, all that like fun and craziness, I think is gone. I think it's lost that magic. This movie just didn't even really feel like I was watching Fast and Furious. It felt like I was watching something soulless. Like they were just parading around the corpse of Fast and Furious now. And I don't think that's the fault of the cast. They seem still very passionate about the series, and they definitely gave it their all and, you know, put a lot of effort into it, even though a lot of times I think the dialogue betrayed them, because the dialogue was super fucking goofy and there was a lot of it. So it didn't really help them or their characters to have them constantly talking about the same shit. And so many times when watching this, I just had to scratch my head and be like, are you fucking serious? That doesn't add up. Like, even setting aside, like, the, you know, suspending disbelief of, like, cars fucking flying, literally, like, Batman hooking themselves and flying across a ravine, or getting magnetized to a plane after they jump off a cliff. Even setting that aside, just some of the shit that happens, just, it's so childish. Like, there's plenty of times where the bad guy could just execute the entire family. Like, there is a time where one of the henchmen is about to pull the trigger and kill one of them, and for no reason at all, the big bad guy just shakes his head and says no. Like, this is a character we've never seen before. He has no affiliation with his family. He's just a guy with a lot of money that wants to rule the world, and he wants them dead. He wants them dead more than anything else. If he had fairy godparents, he would ask them just to execute that family instantly. But right when he's about to pull the trigger and just kill one of them right then and there, he just shakes his head inexplicably saying no. And then he leaves. And then the family breaks out because there's only like 5 guards left now. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, John Cena is introduced into this movie, and I don't think he does like a bad job or anything, but his character is dog shit. This is going to be spoilers real quick. So we're going to get into spoilers. Fair warning. Okay, now you've been warned. John Cena plays Dominic Toretto's brother. I'm not going to go super deep into spoilers, but the thing is, Dominic Toretto blames him for the death of his father. And for a movie that's all about family, it blows my mind that at no point is this ever even hinted at in any of the other movies. This is just pulled out of their ass. Like, oh, no, he's got a brother, and he's a bad guy. But when they explain his origin story, you almost have to wonder, is Dominic Toretto the dumbest man on the planet? Does he even care about family? Because he blames him for the death of his father without ever even talking to him. He puts together some pieces like, oh, you know, my brother was the last one to touch my dad's car before it blew up. My brother is obviously the one that blew up Dad. And then he never even asks him, is this true? Why did you do it? What's going on with this? He immediately just says, you're out of the family, you're a fucking outcast, and I never want to see you again, and then just erases him from his memory. Like, for a man who's so big on family, you would think he would at least talk to him about it and, like, ask, did you notice anything wrong with the engine? Like, was there something else going on here? Instead of immediately jumping to, my brother killed daddy. Like, it's so dumb. All right, end of spoilers. Now we're back into non-spoiler territory. It's just bad character, bad writing all around. I definitely think this is the weakest Fast and Furious movie we've seen in at least a decade. I've been very vocal about my enjoyment of the Fast and Furious movies just because they're just goofy fun to kick back and relax with. But this one challenged the intelligence of the audience, literally just calling them stupid and spitting in their face with the things they put on screen. Like, it's dumb. Like, it's not really fun dumb or like, haha, this is dumb. It's more like, I'm embarrassed to be watching this sometimes. Which sucks to say, because I do like the Fast and Furious movies. I have quite literally seen all of them. I grew up watching the shit out of the first 3 Fast and Furious movies. They were some of my favorites. And I've liked the series ever since. I don't think there's been like a bad movie, or at least one that I haven't enjoyed, until now. I don't think this is a very good movie. I think this is just really misses the mark. But hopefully they'll get it back together for Fast and Furious 10 when the family's in the geriatrics ward and then they have to start drifting around using their segways and walkers. Maybe then they'll get the magic back. But for now, Fast and Furious 9 I think is definitely the weakest one. So plugging this into the moist meter, I'm giving Fast and Furious 9 a 50%. I know I've only really been shitting on it, but I think it's important to note that it is a really well-made movie. Like, everything looks good. The action is still impressive, and there's constant shit going on, so it is very commendable in that regard. And if you're just going for, like, ridiculous, wacky scenes and don't care about anything else, you'll probably be pretty pleased. Although pretty bored during the mountains of exposition that they shit out sometimes. But it's not like a bad movie or like shittily made or anything. It's just there's so many components of it that aren't good, especially compared to the other 50 fucking Fast and Furious movies out there. So it's just disappointing, really. But there are good things about it too. Like, I still do like the characters. I feel like attached to the family, as goofy as that is to say. Like, I quite literally grew up with a lot of these characters, so they do hold a special place in my heart. And there are good moments with the characters when they interact with each other. I definitely think the movie's not all bad. It's just not great, or what I would have wanted for more Fast and Furious. Anyway, that's about it. I'd like to talk about Amazon Music for just a minute. I've mentioned on stream multiple times now, I'm not a huge Spotify fan. I've used it a lot in the past and just never really found myself satisfied with it. So recently, over the last couple months, I've been using Amazon Music more and more, and I just really like the service. So if you're interested in trying Amazon Music, you can click the link in the description below to sign up for a free trial. It's just totally free if you use that link below, and just give it a try. See if you like it as well. I just think the selection's a lot better. And I just find myself being more of a fan of Amazon Music. So, yeah, if you're interested, link in the description below. So, yeah.
This episode was brought to you by Manscaped.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at The Gentleman. I didn't know shit about this movie going into it. I hadn't seen any trailers. All I knew it was Guy Ritchie's newest production. I haven't been too big of a fan of Guy Ritchie's recent works, save for a couple. Some of them have just been pretty goddamn stinky, to be honest. But I still like his work, so that was enough to get me pretty interested in the movie. And I'll be honest, it surprised me with how good it was. It put a finger way up my asshole and gave me a big surprise with how much I enjoyed it. I was expecting it to just be kind of mediocre and just pretty safe, but it's definitely more than that. It's a very good movie with very good performances from the main cast. I really enjoy the narrative the most. It has a really great story to tell, which in a nutshell is about a man who sells drugs, who gets into some hot, deep shit, and things start to get messy, and that shit's gotta get cleaned up. I like the way they tell the story. They have Hugh Grant retroactively telling you the events that happened, and he embellishes them from time to time, which makes it really cool. It's a nice little element to it, and then sometimes you have to even question whether or not the information you're being fed by him is even real, if that's what happened, which is great. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And I really like how the plot starts to get convoluted in the middle and the end. Convoluted in a good way. That's not a negative, not like a fucking Kojima convoluted plot where you got a baby in a pickle jar and then all of a sudden you're getting hunted by a fucking time-traveling vampire garbage man. Everything makes sense in its universe, and it's really great to have all these moving parts. It gets a bit chaotic. It's just a really enjoyable story that I liked from start to finish, and I really liked the way they executed it. But more than that, I liked the way the characters interacted with one another. For example, when you had two friends that were all in the drug business together, they'd talk and they'd, constantly be calling themselves, you're a stiff cunt, you're a wet cunt, sloppy cunt, soggy cunt, all that kind of shit. Just cute little playful banter between each other that was goofy at times, but always felt just right. Just the right amount of goofy and wackiness, and I loved it. Even some of the comedic one-liners landed pretty well, I thought. It was just really enjoyable. Even when the characters didn't like each other, like two characters that fucking hate each other, they give these like supervillain monologues to one another and then ended by calling them a dusty cunt. Really, in general, the dialogue just slapped. The main complaint I have about the movie is it should have ended 10 minutes before it actually did. It's the same problem I had with Baby Driver's ending. It just goes way too far for the sake of closure, where it wants to close off every possible loop that any Redditor could possibly think of. And it's to the detriment of the movie, because it had a great stopping point, a super strong final act that I thought wrapped up lovely. And then out of nowhere, it brings something else in. And it's not out of nowhere, it's something they hint at, but it's something that they didn't need to do at all. And it added nothing to the narrative, the plot, the universe, or the characters, really. And it only lasted 2 scenes. There's only 2 scenes that popped up at the end that were super quick, probably about a minute of screen time total before that's totally resolved. And then they spend the next 9 or 10 minutes talking about that and like over-explaining why that happened and the repercussions of such. It was just unnecessary. It didn't know when to close the curtain. It'd be like if you went to show and tell and the fucking class went wild for the first thing you brought out and they expect you to be done after that standing ovation, but then you're like, wait a minute, and then I have this little action figure. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool, some more claps, but you didn't need to show us the second one. We like the first one better. It seemed unnecessary. They should have ended it at a certain point, but they kept going. It's not the biggest deal in the world. The movie was so good that they ended it twice, or gave you 2 endings, basically. But it really was to the detriment of the overall ending, because I thought they had a great spot to stop, and they just didn't. They just kept taking a bow. It's not horrible. It's, even with all that, it's still not bad or anything like that. Just unnecessary. Another complaint that I had about the movie is, although the plot does get pretty convoluted, it's also extremely predictable. It's nothing very new in the crime genre or gangster genre or anything like that. It follows like a very formulaic plot that I'm pretty sure the majority of people will put together within the first 40 minutes. You can probably guess where it's going to eventually lead, which I feel is a bit disappointing, because when it does get to that really messy stage, there's a lot of moving parts that really could have led to a very different outcome and maybe thrown a bunch of different loops at you, but ultimately it ends the way you expect it to, given what you are on screen, which I feel was just a bit underwhelming and a little disappointing. But it still is satisfying. It doesn't need to fucking reinvent the genre or anything. It was still satisfying to see that kind of story play out, especially with the characters here. So I'm not overly disappointed. I feel like there could have been more that they did with it to not be, in that same formulaic wheelhouse there. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. Let's plug it into the moist meter. I'm giving The Gentleman a nice 85%. I think the movie from top to bottom was just an enjoyable one, with a couple of flaws for sure, but just a very solid movie with a great cast that put on a really solid performance. Really enjoyable, and I actually found it to be one of the most comedic movies, like actually good comedies of the last year or so, like all of 2019 till now. Most of the comedies have sucked fuck, but this one was pretty solid, and it wasn't even like a primarily comedic movie. He just had some great one-liners in there and some great back and forth, so that was really surprising to me. I enjoyed it a lot. As you're no doubt aware, I have a penis, and that penis has some balls. And I'm a pretty hairy man, so there's often a lot of hair down there, and at streams I've talked about the uncomfortable trimming situations I've had, but luckily that shit's in the past thanks to Manscaped. Manscaped had an engineering team spend 18 months in the ball grooming nutsack trimming facility, the laboratory, coming up with the ultimate design, and finally they've released the Lawnmower 3.0. The new gold standard in male grooming technology. This bad boy's got a 7,000 RPM motor, battery life of up to 90 minutes if you really gotta tackle a war zone down there, an LED that illuminates the grooming areas for precision grooming. It's as high tech as it gets. It's fucking incredible. And the best part, it's got skin safe technology so you're never accidentally cutting yourself down there. So it's more efficient and it's safer. If you're interested to try Manscaped, use code MOIST at manscaped.com to get 20% off and free shipping. That's code MOIST, manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping. Fuck yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Raycon.
Initiating moisture.
It's been 17 years since the last Bad Boys movie, and I think I can say with a high degree of confidence that another Bad Boys movie hasn't exactly been on the top of everyone's wish list. I don't think there's been many people during that 17 years fucking scratching at their neck, begging for their fix of more Bad Boys content. Now, that's not to say that the first two movies in the Bad Boys universe were bad or anything, because they certainly weren't. I enjoyed them, and I can vividly remember the intense gore from the second movie blowing the mind of a 9-year-old Charlie. I didn't even know bodies could explode and be gored the way they were in that movie. But again, I think it all wrapped itself up just fine. I don't think during that 17 years there were people with blue balls just waiting for more. But I'm happy to say that the more they gave us, Bad Boys for Life, is good. It's a good movie. Now, it doesn't live up to the original two, but it didn't really have a chance to. It's been 17 years in between. Obviously, they weren't going to be able to carry any of that momentum from back then or hit those same marks. And they didn't bring Michael Bay back, so it didn't have the same power behind it that it originally had, but it's a good movie. But it does have a lot of problems. I'll get into that in a moment. But the things I like about it, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. I think they still absolutely fucking crush it in their roles here. And I think they still have some great on-screen chemistry and they play off each other really well and it's a fun dynamic. While I don't feel the majority of the jokes landed, the ones that did were pretty solid jokes, especially during the airplane section. I thought almost all of those jokes they threw out there landed pretty well. But there were quite a few that just kind of made you roll your eyes. But you kind of expect that because this movie really seemed to want to play it safe. It kind of was like a watered down Bad Boys, as if it was a group of fans of the originals that wanted to make one, but the network said, tone it down, we want to make it safe, so they did. And I feel like that's a bit of a missed opportunity. They also have a really odd narrative where they try and throw in these bafflingly silly decisions towards the end that don't really make a whole lot of sense from a plot perspective, and it just kind of seems like a bit of a cop-out. But it's not in any way offensively bad or anything. It's nothing that makes you regret going to see it. As far as action movie goes, it's very solid. There's a lot of really good set pieces, a lot of good chaos, a lot of good blood and bullets and lead, and all of it just lends itself well to being a decent action movie. But in between these set pieces, there's just a lot of dead space. It just feels like a lot of stuff that isn't interesting to watch. It isn't really enjoyable. They have these side characters that come on that aren't good. There's a new division called Ammo that's aiming to replace the Bad Boys in their old school style of tits, rock and roll, and gore. They do it more tactically using technology, the evil technology. They even mention 4chan in here, so even Mr. 4chan's coming out to play. And I just feel like those characters in Ammo just weren't very good characters. There's one guy that's just an asshole for no reason. One of the major plot points is Mike gets shot and he goes out for revenge. So Mike comes back after getting shot and the guy's just a fucking asshole to him. He's like, oh, hey, Mikey, you're looking good for getting shot, you little pussy. For no reason. And then 2 scenes later, he's fist bumping Mike. And then they're like the best of bros. He's like, I fucked your mom. Yeah, you fucked my mom, right, Mike? Fist bump on fucking my mom. It just seems out of nowhere. Like, there's at no point do they ever feel like friends until all of a sudden they're like inseparable out of nowhere. There's never any build up. They never really develop a relationship. Just 1 second this dude's a douchebag, next second they're basically going out and slaying pussy together. They're just not good characters. They don't add anything. They're very two-dimensional, but towards the end they have some great moments in their action scenes. There's one tech guy who's like a super buff man, and at the end of the movie just goes fucking Hulk mode, which is goofy and cool, but you know, it's enjoyable. At no point is the movie ever not enjoyable. I just feel like in between their big set pieces and explosions and chaos, it it just drags. It just has these weak characters that are trying to do something different, but it just ends up being the most generic shit ever that you've seen a million times. It tells the same story that you've seen a million times until it tries to throw something different that just is silly. It's just a lot of things that are both very generic, and then in an effort to not be super generic just gets very silly, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It's still a good movie. It just has quite a few problems. I also think the soundtrack in here, the score, isn't nearly as enjoyable as it was in the original movies. It feels like the safest possible music they could have possibly put in this movie, which I feel is a bit of a letdown because that kind of shit in the old movies would get you hype. I felt like this, going into this, I felt like it'd try and be like an old school, late 90s, early 2000s gore fest, just full of thrills type action movie, but it's not. There is gore, there is action, there is a decent bit of it, but it's not capturing that same spirit. And that's not the worst thing in the world, because it is still good when it does break out the big guns and go wild. I just feel like there could have been a lot more for the Bad Boys reunion here. And it seems like they're setting up for more Bad Boys. I don't know why, but I mean, if they can get back to the original 2 and 1, and even some of what they did in 3, if they could just mix all of them together, Bad Boys 4 would be a great fucking action movie. And that's not to say this one wasn't, because I did enjoy it. Plugging it into the moist meter, I'm giving Bad Boys for Life a nice 60%. I don't think anyone's going to be overly disappointed. If you're a hardcore Bad Boys fan, if such a thing exists, you will probably be pleased. If you're a fan of action movies, you will probably be pleased, but it's not a memorable action movie or experience. It's just a fun one for about 2 hours that you're going to enjoy, and that's about it. I actually just got back from the gym after bumping some boner jams through the old Raycons here and throwing up the heaviest weight in the entire Iron Temple, as you'd expect from me with the strength that rivals Hercules, and I wanted to tell you about Raycon as I've done in the past. I really like Raycon, especially at the gym, and just not just at the gym, but being active. Having wireless earbuds is just such a huge benefit. Even just getting into the car and getting around is much more convenient. Having used wired headphones for my whole life like a fucking caveman, getting that shit stuck on something and ripped out is unpleasant. You don't have to worry about that with Raycon. They're fit secure. They sound just as good as the other premium audio brands, but start at half the price. It's just a great product and a great deal, and I can't recommend them enough, especially if you're going to be active out there at the gym or just doing day-to-day shit and you want to hear some boner jams. So if you're interested, you can pick up a pair of these bad boys at buyraycon.com/moist. Again, that's buyraycon.com/moist. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at the new Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. It's weird, Maleficent's one of the very few Disney movies where critics felt confident enough in their 3 inches of usable penis to come out and just openly shit on and tear apart in their reviews. And that's very uncommon and uncharacteristic of these pathetic worms, because usually they'll suck the ass of anything Disney related. They're usually not overly harsh on Disney movies, but for some reason Maleficent was where they finally rallied their flags and started shitting on it openly. And now for Mistress of Evil, they're doing the same thing and openly shitting on it, just being super hard on the movie, which, I mean, it'd be great if it made sense, but to me it doesn't. Maleficent's not exactly the Disney movie that I think's deserving of this kind of bukkake session. It's not bad. The first one I enjoyed quite a bit, and the second one I enjoyed even more so. Well, not even more so, but just as much, for a different reason. I don't understand why it's the subject to the critics just annihilating it. It's very strange to me. Maybe it's just pent-up aggression from not being able to give honest reviews in some movies because they get funding from some of the studios and don't want to look bad or offend fans. But I really don't see what critics hate about the movies. The first one, for example, had a very fun twist on a classic story we've all heard and seen in the animated version. It's an alternate telling of the story that's really visually pleasing, as well as being pretty goddamn dark for a Disney fairy tale. It's something unique, which is significantly better than the lazy fucking rehashes of the same story with a 1-to-1 recreation of the animated to live action like Lion King and shit like that. I much prefer a unique twist on it or a new creative vision of the story. Mistress of Evil admittedly isn't as good as the first one in the department of telling you a unique story to the universe. This one doesn't really have the same type of emotional levels that the first one did, nor does it really try to. The emphasis on this one is more about fear and war, which is very unique to a fucking Disney classic fairy tale, and I like that. By the time the credits roll in this movie, fucking 10,000 humans and 10,000 fairies have all perished brutally. I'm talking straight murder. The fairies get vaporized like they'd been caught in an atomic bomb testing facility. It goes pretty goddamn hard for a PG Disney fairy tale movie. Now, one complaint I have is Maleficent herself, Angelina Jolie, really isn't a big part of this movie. She's very rarely on screen in this movie. She's like Godzilla in the Godzilla movies, where he's barely ever on screen. It's just kind of a letdown, because I think she's a great Maleficent. I think she fucking kills it. So to really not have her as a very big presence in the movie, I think is a bit of a misstep. But it's still fun. It's still well made. The story, admittedly, isn't the most complex or the most surprising with its twists and turns or anything. But it's unique enough to the universe that I still very much enjoyed it. I don't have a whole lot of complaints about this movie. All I have is nice things to say about it, because I enjoyed it. I felt like I was watching more than just a passionless retelling of something we've seen already 1,000 times, that Disney for some reason just keeps fucking whipping with the whip over there with Mickey Mouse and forcing it to dance on screen for more money from China and from, you know, the coming of age people that haven't seen the animated versions. So to see something that has a different twist and does try and be unique in an already existing IP is something I'll always respect. And I think both Maleficent movies do a good job of that. Now, I don't think anyone's going to be bored with them, because they move along pretty fast and they are kind of hardcore. They do kill characters, which I don't see a whole lot of in movies for kids these days. I mean, I understand it's a kids movie. You're not going there expecting blood, tits, and rock and roll flying around. But to actually kill off important characters and to kill them off in the way that Maleficent does, it's pretty rare to see. So I like what they've done with the Maleficent 1 and 2. Maleficent 2 I think is a bit weaker than the first one, but it is still just as visually pleasing, probably more so, especially when it comes time to the battle and the war. It's a really nice spectacle of this red mist that's just vaporizing the fairies, as well as some combat between them. Then there's some like really anime moments, you know, arms go out and then all of a sudden spells are flying out of her hands. I half expected to hear the Evangelion theme song to come on half the time during the fight. Before I forget, there is one thing I want to mention. There's like 5 or 6 times you think the movie's just about to wrap itself up, like you would just hit the climax and now we're about to come down towards the resolution, and then it doesn't. It keeps going, which isn't necessarily a huge complaint, but it's really odd that they'd have like these really hardcore emotional moments that you think are about to just be like the deciding end of where this is going, and then it keeps going. I don't know, it kind of threw me off a couple times. Not that it's that big of a deal, but it's just something to make note of. They really wanted to, you know, tease you over there with that little foreplay, that little hint that it's coming. Oh, kidding, it's not coming yet. We've still got the stamina. It's just, from start to finish, I did enjoy the movie, and I think Maleficent 1 and 2 are a nice addition to the established property that they're spinning off of. I think they justify their existence, and they seem like a passionate retelling of a classic tale, and I like that. So putting Maleficent, Mistress of Evil on the Moist meter, I'm giving it a nice fat 70%. I would recommend it if you're a fan of Disney movies or fairy tales in general. I think it's a fun movie, and usually these kind of movies I think are very forgettable. But with Maleficent, at least in the first one's respect, it's a movie that I think about a little bit, because I did like what it did, and I like the universe it created. And Mistress of Evil really goes in hard and doubles down on that universe. It doesn't really add a whole lot to it as a whole, because I feel like the first one kind of wrapped itself up nicely enough that the second one didn't need to be made, but it had a story to tell and it told it well. And I enjoyed it. That's it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at YouTube superstar internet sensation Will Smith's new movie, Gemini Man. Gemini Man is about Will Smith versus Will Smith. And honestly, I don't know why people are shitting on it as hard as they are. The movie's fine. I mean, there's a lot wrong with it, obviously, but if you're coming in here looking for a silly action movie, god damn it, you're getting the silliest fucking action movie you can find these days. It's unapologetically silly action, and I fucking love it. Apparently the script for this movie is over 20 years old, and you feel every goddamn year on that number, because this feels like something 20 years ago, and that's a good thing to me. I'm totally fine with a movie like this existing. I'll get the negatives out of the way. The CG de-aging they used on Will Smith is fucking uncanny valley sometimes, especially at the end of the movie. Like, it's not bad by any means, but it looks kind of amateurishly deep-faked at points, and other times just downright. The physics in this movie, when there's an action scene, it feels like two feathers fighting, or two action figures. There's no impact. You never feel like being said, there's not like a whole ton of action scenes. This isn't like exploding with just full throttle over the top testosterone, adrenaline pumping action or anything. But when you do get action, it's super satisfying. But again, the physics it's weird. It's like an old tech demo. I saw this movie in HFVR DVD. I don't know. I don't fucking remember. I think it's high frame rate rectums, HFV maybe. I don't remember. Some new thing they're doing with 60 FPS and 3D. I did that. I've never done it before, and I swear to God, I didn't notice a single difference. Not only did it not feel 3D, but it didn't feel like 60 frames per second either. It just felt totally fucking normal. Also, I could take the glasses off sometimes, and it looked the same as if I had them on. So I don't know what the fuck's going on with 3D these days. I don't see movies in them, but I guess they just got rid of 3D and just only use it as like a bad marketing tool. I'm not sure, but that's just probably worth noting. But again, yeah, the physics just seemed like an old tech demo for something out of the PS2 era at times, which is fine, because old tech demos for PS2 were pretty fucking cool. So I don't know why everyone's shitting on it so hard. I don't know why they'd go into a movie like Gemini Man expecting something to be like a really profound action movie with some kind of incredible story to tell or something really, memorable or profound about it. There's none of that here. You're not going to find that here. But Will Smith versus Will Smith. Will Smith is a good actor. Will Smith's a fun actor. He's got some good lines in here sometimes in between some shit dialogue. Got some real good action in here sometimes in between a shit story. I enjoyed it. There's some useless characters for sure. There's like this Russian character they bring in who only exists to be in like a bathhouse, almost naked, to just say a couple lines and then waddle away on his sandals with bad posture. He's never touched on again in the rest of the movie. I don't know what purpose he served. Maybe it was just like the director owing a friend a favor, so he tossed him in there. I'm really not sure about that whole entire arc. But that's there. Doesn't need to be, but it's there, and I don't mind it because fuck it, it's still kind of enjoyably goofy. It's a fun movie. I really did enjoy it. I can see why people wouldn't like it if they went in here expecting more than what this movie's even trying to offer. Plugging Gemini Man into the moist meter, I'm giving this bad boy a crisp 40%. I enjoyed it. I think it's worth seeing if you're just looking for a little movie to shove some popcorn in your face to. Just chill, watch some cool action, look at some weird physics and, yeah, I guess high frame rate maybe if you see HFR VR or whatever it is. I didn't notice a difference, but maybe I'm just a fucking idiot. I had fun. That's it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at the new Rambo movie, Last Blood. I bet a lot of you didn't even know there was a new Rambo movie. I know I certainly didn't. I only knew this was coming out because I check new movies every week, and I saw Rambo was coming out on Thursday last week, and I was like, wait, that's weird. That's Rambo. That's a pretty powerful franchise, and I hadn't seen a single preview for it, and I go to the movies once a week, and I hadn't seen anything, which is really surprising to me. And I know action movie heroes, action stars, kind of a thing of the past, which is a goddamn shame. We still have a couple like John Wick and, well, I guess just John Wick. He's like the last action star. I guess I can't even think of another one, like maybe the Fortnite default character. I have no fucking idea. But even still, I figured Rambo would be kind of a big deal. And it really wasn't. I went opening day, and it was in the smallest theater they had available. It's just disrespectful to my boy Rambo. But anyway, the marketing campaign sucked ass, and I got a shit theater for it, but whatever. Since I went into this without seeing a preview, I didn't know if this was going to focus more on the emotional side of Rambo's journey, trying to settle down, have a normal life, or more on like an ultra-violent gore fest type of deal where there's assholes being turned inside out, blood and rock and roll flying everywhere. I didn't know what approach it would take. It turns out it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Both are done decently enough. The latter being much better. The ultra-violent gore montage at the end is superb. I really enjoyed that start to finish. It was a lot of fun. The kills were very creative and very brutal, which I was very happy to see. And that's not to say the emotional stuff wasn't done decent. It was good. I thought the cast of characters around Rambo were good, and Rambo himself was alright. This thing is, with Rambo, his character is supposed to be so damaged and, he's gone through all these horrible things, but that leads to some really awkward scenes in this movie where something really bad happens to someone he cares about a lot,
and what he says and what he shows vary greatly. There's a huge disconnect. Something horrible happens, he says, shit, I'm real sad about this, but the way he's acting, it's just so goddamn stoic, as if he's not even there, as if someone was just holding up the line on a piece of paper and he read it. It's just odd. It just feels odd, and it makes the scene awkward, which takes the emotional aspect out of some of the shit that happens. Now, when Rambo's not in the emotional scenes, they're pretty good. And I don't think it's his fault or anything like that. I think that's just supposed to be how the character is, but it still makes it feel odd to watch it happen. And it makes the audience feel a bit awkward, because it's like, well, what is he really feeling? Does he even care? And then he goes into this fucking doomsday prepper mode where the second half of the movie's all about revenge. And he's got this entire, the little traps that you have like a 5-minute montage of him, swollen eye and cut up. One scene, something happens in the next scene with nothing really leading into each other. It's in a totally different state of mind for every character, and something totally different has happened. It's just really odd to keep track of how much time is passing. It's not that huge of a deal, I suppose, because it makes the plot move along much faster, and you get to the fucking kills really quickly, which it was really setting up towards for the whole movie, which was nice, but it still makes it a little odd to watch it unfold in that way. Now, I'm going to plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Rambo Last Blood a 65%. Now, I want to talk about another thing I had a problem with, but it's a spoiler. So this will now be a spoiler. So the movie's about his niece getting kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. She ODs, and she dies in Rambo's car. What the odd thing about this is Rambo saved her, put her in the car, and drove her across the border to bring her home. What I don't understand is, why wouldn't Rambo take her to a hospital? He knew she was ODing. He saw it, and yet he's still driving in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, bringing her to a goddamn dilapidated barn in the middle of nowhere for no reason. Well, not for no reason, to get her out. But why wouldn't he stop for a hospital to take care of the overdosing problem that she eventually dies from? He had to have crossed the border. He had to gone by civilization at some point, and he didn't make a single stop to get her help at a hospital in the area, which I just don't understand. And maybe maybe the problem is with time. I don't know how much time it passed from him saving her to her dying on the road. Maybe he was still in Mexico and he never got out, never left, but I really couldn't tell in the movie, and that was just a kind of big deal, because I feel like he could have saved her and everything would have been fine. The movie would have ended right there. It wouldn't have been a happy ending because a lot of bad shit happened to her, but it wouldn't have gone further, which would have been a shame because the kills and everything were great, but it just, from a plot perspective, made no sense to me. But again, the movie was enjoyable. I liked it, especially the end. It's just a lot of the stuff in the beginning was a little confusing, and it didn't do anything incredible, nothing, overly creative. It was all pretty generic and by the books, but it worked. It worked well enough, and I really like to see Rambo in action. That's about it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Hobbs and Shaw. It's exactly what you would expect after watching the trailer. Stupid, over-the-top, fun. It's exactly what you get. Fast and Furious has cemented itself as the go-to series if you want to just go. You don't want to think hard. You just want to see some shit explode. You want to see some nice ass in your face being shaken around a little bit when a nice song's playing. And you want to see testosterone overflowing, big meaty hands being thrown, fast fucking cars. And that's what you get with Hobbs and Shaw. And in this movie in particular, it's like some superhero shit. They honestly should have just dropped Fast and Furious and called this like DC's Hobbs and Shaw. It'd be one of DC's only good movies. It's just like an actual superhero movie. The Rock plays basically the Hulk. Jason Statham plays basically the Hulk. And Idris Elba plays Super Idris Elba. The characters are goofy, over the top. It's a constant, bickering back and forth between The Rock and Jason Statham, Hey, fuck you, man. No, you couldn't fuck me with a dick that small. My ass is too big for your little dick. Oh, you take that back, Hobbs. My dick's 10 times the balls your dick once had. It's just that throughout the whole movie, with a little bit of family undertones, becoming brothers and good about it. It's just a good little use of an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. I don't remember how long it was. Plugging this shit into the moist meter, I'm giving Hobbs and Shaw a crisp 65. I do recommend it. A lot of the dialogue doesn't really land. Some of the banter just kind of gets a little grating and really try-harding at certain points to sell you on the idea that these guys hate each other, but they might also want to kiss on the lips. It really kind of goes a little too hardy on there instead of letting it be a natural chemistry, but a lot of the times it does work too.
Again, nothing overly great or overly awful about this movie. I had a fun time with it. I don't think it's a masterpiece in action, but it's got me interested enough to see where Hobbs and Shaw saga goes next. Because this seems to be a flagship for a new spin-off of Fast and Furious instead of just a one-off deal. This seems like it's going to be its own series that runs concurrently with Fast and Furious, which I like, because I did enjoy the movie. So that's about it. So yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Raycon.
Initiating moisture.
It's been a little while since a new movie's come out in this post-apocalypse that was actually worth something. Most movies aren't coming out right now because they can't go to theaters, so they're just not even bothering. For obvious reasons, that makes sense, and I haven't had a whole lot of faith in like Netflix originals carrying this torch during this time. But that being said, today on the Moist Meter, we're checking out Extraction, which is a Netflix original, and also very good. I came into this movie with no expectations and knowing nothing about it, and was pleasantly surprised. It's an extremely fun action movie, but it doesn't offer too much else outside of that, and I don't think that's too bad of a thing. It's directed by Sam Hargrave, who is a veteran stunt coordinator on a lot of big titles, and it really shows just how in tune he is with what makes action fucking awesome. The action in this movie is great. Chris Hemsworth plays the lead, and he is constantly like ripping fucking throats out, tearing testicles out of their sack. It's extremely violent, really well directed choreography. It's just really fucking good. There's even one like 12-minute, 15-minute scene that's all supposed to be one take, and it's incredible. Obviously, it's not all one take, kind of like in 1917, but it does get that effect across where it does look like it's all one take. And it flows beautifully. It's a lot of fun to look at. There's people getting blasted by, fucking RPGs, close quarters combat with, like, gun kung fu where they're slapping each other with their pistols and shit, and then it's just good. The action in this movie is top-notch. Some of the best I've seen in quite a while. Very reminiscent of John Wick. I think there's a lot in common with these two movies because both of them are helmed by a stuntman, a person who really understands the craft and is really able to convey action in a great way. A lot of action movies these days are just, rapid cuts in between the action. You can never even really see impact or decipher what the fuck's going on. It just looks like two action figures colliding, and in a movie like Extraction, it's super refreshing to see like this one-take action shot. Again, it's not all one take, but it's made to look that way, and it does get the effect across effectively. So it's a lot of fun watching all the action, but aside from that, there's just not a whole lot here. The plot and the characters are super bare bones. It's very simple, generic stuff. Real rough and tough mercenary, part of this crew of ragtag misfits that are real strong and real good at killing. Well, they get a job to extract a kid who's been kidnapped. And along the way, we learn that our real rough and tough soldier, well, he's got a little bit of a sensitive soft spot and a bit of a troubled past. And as things go belly up, people are getting their shit pushed in, people dying left and right to save this kid. It's just generic stuff, and it's not that big of a deal because that's clearly not the focal point. I don't think it was coming out here to tell some incredibly riveting tale that's going to have you move to tears or rethinking life as you know it or anything like that. I think it was really just looking for an excuse to get all of these fucking awesome set pieces and action shots out there, which it succeeds in beautifully. So I don't mind that the plot is just super generic stuff, but if you're not just like a huge action movie fan, I don't think there's a whole lot for you to enjoy with this movie. But if you do like just some super nuts to butts, full throttle, high octane action, this movie's got a lot of that, and some of the best I've seen in a while. It is really good shit. I will say though, despite the characters not being super deep or all that interesting, Chris Hemsworth really sells his performance. When he's badass, he's really fucking badass. When he's emotionally vulnerable and crying a little bit, you can feel that. It's like watching a tier 3 sub to a streamer finding out she has a boyfriend. Like, you can really feel the raw emotion. So he really does deliver a great performance, despite the characters not being super well written for depth or anything like that. So hats off to him there. And again, it is just really a super fucking entertaining movie. The only other complaint that I could really say about it is there are some things that seem rushed. Like, there's really obvious CGI moments that just kind of take you out, like, what the fuck was that? Yeah, and I imagine maybe it's because of quarantine or like a budget issue or something, but there are moments where there isn't a whole lot of polish to it, where it seems like, shit, that was some stinky CGI we just saw there. It never gets so bad to the level of like a CW show, but it definitely does ride that line a little bit of, wow, that kind of looked like asshole. Plugging extraction into the moist meter, giving this bad boy a nice crisp 75%. I think it is extremely entertaining, especially for anyone that just wants to watch some high quality action, and especially with not a whole lot of shit coming out right now. I think the movie is a very refreshing taste because it just has so much of that just really enjoyable shit. You can just shove popcorn in your face at home watching Chris Hemsworth tear people in half and beat people to death with other people's bodies. It's crazy shit. It's really good action and a really enjoyable movie. Yeah, that's about it. I'd like to talk about Raycon now. I've talked about Raycon a ton of times before, and it's always important to remind you of just how efficient it is to have high-quality wireless earbuds, especially during this lockdown we're under. Again, I always recommend working out at home calisthenics. Just because you can't go to a gym's no excuse not to be physically active, and when you're doing that, you've got to have some wireless earbuds to get those boner jams popping without getting in the way with wires and cords dangling all over the place. The best model Raycon offers is the Everyday E25s, which I would highly recommend. Raycon sound just as good as the other top audio brands you know, but come in at half the price. If you're interested in trying Raycon for yourself, go to buyraycon.com/moist to get 15% off your order. That's buyraycon.com/moist for 15% off. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
John Wick Chapter 3 is an absolute fucking masterpiece of action. It's in fact, it is my favorite action movie of all time now, which is no easy title to have taken with The Raid and Dredd. But it beats both of those movies, and by the way, some of the Raid actors are actually in this movie. Just letting you know that the directors are aware of how much action fans love The Raid, and they took those actors and put them in a movie that's even better than The Raid. It's incredible. Also, if you haven't seen The Raid, highly recommend it. The movie in the action department is some of the most fun I've ever had in a movie theater. The entire crowd was getting involved and laughing with some of the action. And I say laughing with because this movie is very self-aware at some of the goofiness of its action. It fully embraces that to give you the most enjoyable deaths and the most creative action sequences of all time on the big screen. And the setting is constantly changing. It's not just gunfights in a back alley or a warehouse. It's fights in a barn. John Wick gets 3 kills using a horse to kick people's skulls off. Everything in this universe is a weapon for John Wick. I'm surprised he doesn't start using fleshlights for weapons like I do. In fact, if you're watching this, Keanu, or director of the John Wick series, please let me come aboard and I'll give you some fleshlight action sequences for Mr. Wick to use in the next movie. It's just so good. And it even reminds me of Jackie Chan a little bit, how Jackie would blend fighting and comedy into one and make a really unique comedic moment. John Wick does the same thing, where it uses its action and uses comedy at the same time at points and delivers some really fucking gut-busting moments. It's a lot of fun, and you're not laughing at those moments, you're laughing with them. It's very clear that they're using that fight for a joke, and it works 100% of the time. The comedy, even when it's not the physical stuff, the comedy in the movie is well executed. Some jokes don't really land and are pretty just flat, but for the most part, the comedy works because the characters are so nice, and just every time they try and tell a joke with fighting and stuff, I think it worked every time. Because a lot of movies don't do that anymore. You'll have just really serious, dark, and gritty shit, and John Wick has some real gory, fun shit, but it's not afraid to also have some really goofy Looney Tunes fucking shit happen when a fight breaks out as well. It's a lot of fun. The fighting is genuinely second to none. The action is unmatched. It has no equal in the medium. The story is also, it's good, it's serviceable, there's nothing riveting about the story, but John Wick takes place in a really interesting universe, so the story doesn't have to be great as long as it can just take you on a little fucking amusement park ride through its universe, which it does. It has you going all over the world, meeting some really cool characters, but overall the story's not that great. The story's a bit goofy, but the story's just there to give John Wick more targets to blast the ass of, so in my book that's fine. I also have a huge pet peeve that this movie has triggered me on. I hate in movies where the bad guy has a gun and he charges at the protagonist up in melee range, like fucking trying to jam the gun in their urethra, just right up in their face, waving the gun without shooting, so then the protagonist has a chance to, kung fu the gun out of their hand. That happens a few times in this movie, but for the most part they stay away from that trope. But man, when that happens, nothing makes my dick softer. I can't stand that shit. Charging the main guy with a shotgun that you had locked on him in the background for 3 or 4 seconds just to go poke him in the ass cheeks with it.
and then get outmaneuvered. I can't stand that. That's just a big pet peeve of mine, and it does happen. This movie falls victim to it there. But that's the only thing I can criticize about its action. So let's go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. John Wick Chapter 3 is getting a 95%. I highly recommend everyone go see this movie. If you haven't watched the other two movies, you don't really need to, I guess, to see this one. Though you would be doing yourself a big favor to watch the previous two because they are also very, very, very good. And this movie plays a lot into some references to the previous movies, as well as continuing the storyline. But again, like, the story's not the biggest part of this movie. It's mainly about just seeing some fucking nut-busting action, and it delivers 100%. An incredible movie. Fucking loved it. Fantastic. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
I know in the last moist meter I said that Jackson was on an extended vacation, so the moist meter quality would go to shit during this time, because I can't do the same type of editing he does with the production and the effects and shit. However, I'm happy to report that a mystical, magical wood elf fairy godmother named J-Mac has stepped up to the plate and offered to deliver high quality moist meter editing. So thank you, J-Mac. Let's go ahead and get right into this shit now. Mission Impossible Fallout. I'm a huge fan of the Mission Impossible franchise, and I really hope one day we'll see an Ethan Hunt versus James Bond crossover, kind of like Freddy versus Jason. Ethan Hunt versus James Bond. James Bond would win in fucking girls department, but I think Ethan Hunt would have the edge in, like, pure high-octane, diesel-pumping, testosterone, cum-inducing action. Now on to this movie instead of focusing on my fan fiction, pipe dream, cinematic experience crossover event, which I do believe should absolutely happen. This movie is exceptional, the action is spectacular, but there's a lot of things that I think absolutely fell short, the biggest being the plot. The plot is the exact same plot that we've seen in Mission Impossible movies before, and I mean the exact same. I don't want to give anything away, but it is a one-to-one copy of previous Mission Impossible plots. I don't know how many fucking times they can, assume Ethan's the bad guy. Like in Rogue Nation, there's not really too much else I really need to talk about. Performances are solid across the board, except for maybe Luther in some parts, because he had to deliver like an emotional speech about Ethan's wife, and it was just kind of uncomfortable to listen to because it just felt so forced and unnecessary. Kind of like someone walked into the writing room and said, well, let's shoehorn some emotion in this bitch. Where's the emotion at? Okay, let me write something real quick. I'll scribble something down. And that made it in there, and that was kind of goofy, but other than that, solid performances. It knows what it needs to focus on. It has a very clear goal. It just wants to deliver some cool shit to you, and it succeeds. Although I do need to mention, I think it goes a bit overboard on like the classic Mission Impossible formula with the masks and shit. There's an over-reliance on double cross, super cross, I had you before you had me because I knew what your move was going to be. Also, I hope you're used to hearing the phrase, that's what he wants us to do, because they say that exact phrase verbatim at least 50 fucking times in this movie. Almost as many times as they did in Rogue Nation. Not quite as many there, but almost as much here. So I hope you're excited to hear that phrase uttered a million times. But it's still a very good movie. Let's go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Mission Impossible Fallout an 80%. It excels where it needs to. It wants to be a very good action movie, and it's an excellent action movie. I think it's the best in the Mission Impossible series, and a very, very good action movie overall. They've clearly mastered the formula. They want to make a very fun, shove popcorn in your face and just be entertained action movie, and they succeeded. It's a great fucking action movie. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Here at Moist Meter headquarters, we're all about practical pranks and surprises. The biggest one we've pulled so far is this one right now, because this is a back-to-back Moist Meter. I just finished the one for Happy Death Day, and now I'm doing one for The Foreigner, because I saw both movies back-to-back, so I figured let's do them back-to-back. And you had no idea, if I didn't say anything, that this has been right after I finished Happy Death Day. It's quite the elaborate hoax. So, The Foreigner, is it good? How much moisture is there in there? And it's pretty fucking wet. I left with sodden panties. The story you can pretty much get from the trailers. Jackie Chan loses his daughter in a bombing from terrorists, and he thinks Pierce Brosnan knows who did it, and he wants the names. So then he sets out on this mission for revenge, and he becomes this angel of death, but he doesn't really kill anyone, at least not until it really starts going. But he is this mastermind. He's always a step ahead of everyone, but he's not an invincible superhero. He still gets his ass kicked. The action is great, but it's more of a political drama, and it to a lot of people that might turn you off, but it's really well done, and it's really interesting to watch all of these plot points unfold. And the great plot is held by fantastic performances from Pierce Brosnan and Jackie Chan. Pierce Brosnan plays James Bond, who's gone undercover as an Irish government official, and Jackie Chan plays a demigod. And it's fucking awesome to watch Jackie Chan get to Pierce in this movie. You know, 1 second Pierce Brosnan's just going down in the kitchen for a nice bowl of cereal. He opens a cereal box, nope. Jackie Chan's replaced it with asbestos, and he has a note in there saying he wants some fucking names. Fucking awesome throughout the entire movie, and the ending is so satisfying. Really, the plot was so good, and I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I thought it was just going to be a little cliche action movie, and there is quite a bit of action, but the political drama side of things is what really will draw you in, and it's just so well done. The soundtrack and everything, it's forgettable. I don't know why I even bother mentioning soundtrack. I think from now on in Moist Meters, I'll only mention soundtrack if it's actually fucking good. Because most movies, they don't really do anything too special with a soundtrack. I mean, there's some standouts out there, though, like Blade Runner 2049. But, you know, okay, don't go there expecting a great soundtrack. You're not going to get any big boner jams. But what you will get is a movie you're probably not expecting. When you see Jackie Chan as the leading name on a movie, you're expecting a Jackie Chan movie. And with a Jackie Chan movie, you're expecting a certain dose of Jackie Chan. Vitamin JC, a recommended doctor daily dose of Jackie Chan per Jackie Chan movie. In this movie, Jackie Chan is not the main character. He's still a big role in here, but he's more of, not exactly a supporting character, but he's just more of kind of that guy who's on a mission, and he's a subplot. The main show here is Pierce Brosnan and what's going on in the political side of things and what it all means for Pierce Brosnan and his career as a politician. And it's not bad because it's well done, but if you're going there expecting Jackie Chan whooping some ass and making men rim job each other and shit, you're not gonna get that here. The action is there and it's good, but it's not Jackie Chan action. So if that's what you're expecting, I have no doubt you'll be let down. But if you go into this movie kind of with an open mind and like, okay, I'm going to get a story-heavy political drama type of movie, and I'm also going to get to watch Jackie Chan whoop some ass, then you'll probably be pretty satisfied with what you see here. The movie does have quite a few flaws, though, at least in terms of pacing, and it also seems like they kind of didn't know what kind of tone they wanted to go for or what story they really wanted to tell. It seemed like really two movies put together. You know, for one part, they seem to want to focus on Jackie Chan and him wanting revenge, and it makes it feel like, okay, we're going to watch Jackie Chan outsmart these people and kick a whole bunch of dickhole inside out. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of revenge shit for a little while, and then it switches entirely to the political thriller side of things where we don't even see Jackie, and he's only mentioned briefly every now and then. And then by the end of the movie, it seems like Jackie Chan's character was just pushed to the side until they remembered, oh, Jackie Chan's still in this movie, let's kind of shoehorn him in here. And then they kind of have Jackie come back in out of nowhere. And then once he's out of it again, at the very end of the movie, he just, again, comes out of nowhere. And it just doesn't seem like they know what to do with Jackie by the end of the movie because they had already lost the revenge direction. They had already focused so heavily on the political side of things. When Jackie Chan does come back in, it's like, oh shit, I forgot. He was still on this mission, wasn't he? And it's kind of a shame because if they had set on one straight tone throughout the movie, they could have had something a lot better, I think. But kind of meshing the two falls apart towards the end. It's still a good movie. Let's go ahead and pop this shit into the moist meter. I'm going to give this an 80%. I really enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it did a good job of telling a story, and it also had some action to back it up that was interesting. The characters were really well done by Jackie and Pierce Brosnan, and I just had fun watching this movie. And that's it. See ya. Welcome to the moist meter.
Initiating moisture.
Today, the experts here at Wild Wetness Incorporated Data Analysis Group, trademarked, will analyze the moisture content of the new Tom Cruise flick, American Made. He plays Barry Seal, so I'm not too far off. Let's go ahead and start with the story. I'm a big fan of history. I didn't know too much about the whole Barry Seal saga. I must have missed that arc in the manga, but it was very interesting. I thought the story was pretty well put together. It was a very interesting story. After looking up a lot of the real Barry Seal shit, a lot of the movie was just fucking make-believe, which isn't bad, because I think the story itself is just shrouded in so much mystery. So many of the files are still classified to this day. So, I mean, there's really not a whole lot you could do with it besides just kind of take some liberties. And I think they did a good job telling a very interesting story for the most part. However, one of my biggest complaints is the editing, especially in the first half of the movie. It's just very chaotic and doesn't really explain things very well. 1 second, Barry's getting beat to shit in a Colombian prison. Next second, the CIA's bailed him out and he's delivering guns on behalf of Uncle Sam. It doesn't really fill in these blanks on why they would bail him out and why they needed him in the first place. It's like if I wanted to distribute meth throughout Tampa and I looked up the world's best Girl Scout cookie seller and had her distribute it for me. Just kinda odd. And somehow things just keep jumping and getting more and more extreme for Barry. 1 second he's struggling to make money, the next second he's got so much money he's using it as toilet paper and he's hiding it in fucking McDonald's bags across town. And then next second, after he's been caught and everyone knows what he's done, he's meeting the president and he's gonna be a hero. He's like the fucking Forrest Gump here. It's just incredible the amount of shit that he gets into. And I know it's loosely based on a true story, but I can't help but question how much of it is even closely related to what really happened. And that's not a complaint or anything. I'm not going there to get a fucking history lesson. I'm not going there for class. I was going there to be entertained, and I was. It was a good movie. Another thing I really liked was the cartel. They made the cartel seem like just a genuine group of nice frat boys. I wanted to pop open a cold one with them. They weren't scary. Pablo Escobar was a bro. Everyone was cool in the cartel. Makes me want to get into it. Obviously, I wouldn't last very long in it, but that shit definitely seemed fun in this movie. Now let's get to some complaints I have. The camera work at some points in this movie makes no sense. It just gets really shaky for no reason. It's like some Cloverfield shit going on when they're just hanging out in an airport. I don't understand why. I guess the camera operator was really cold. They wouldn't give him a nice jacket or anything, and he was freezing, so he started shivering. Made the camera work kind of nauseating at points. Also, I hope you like Tom Cruise's smile, because that's half of the shots of him in this movie is just his fucking ass-eating smile on the screen. Not really a bad thing. I mean, I guess that's just kind of the character he portrays, but man, it's excessive. There's also a couple other things I could nitpick, but I'm not going to. Let's go ahead and get to the moist meter calculations here. This is a 68%. Now, I know I only do like intervals of 5, because those are the only ones that mean something. But I feel like I need a little bit of an arbitrary number here to convey that it is a good movie, and it's better than I expected it to be. I give a lot of 65%, so I think I want to take it a little step forward and go for a 68. But it's not quite a 70, you know what I mean? It's a good movie, decent story. Don't go there expecting a whole lot of action or a whole lot of titties and stuff. Just go there expecting a fun, decent story about the cartel and a man who gets in a very lucky and very complicated situation. Soundtrack, I'm sure there was music in here. I didn't make note of it. Like I said, I don't really keep track of it. Acting was good. Tom Cruise always is a very consistently decent actor. So yeah, decent movie, probably worth seeing. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the moist meter. How wet are ya? About to be a lot wetter, that's for damn sure. Just saw the new Planet of the Apes movie, so let's scientifically analyze the moisture content of this movie, plus or minus 0.5% uncertainty, of course. This is the third entry into the rebooted Planet of the Apes franchise. It follows the same pattern of the previous two by having a name that makes it difficult to figure out what order they go in. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War of the Planet of the Apes, fucking Dawn of the War to stop the rise of the Planet of the Apes. Unless you look this shit up, you're not going to be able to tell just from the name what order this movie fell in. It's not really a complaint or anything. I like when movies aren't just number 2 and number 3. I like when they have a different title to them. But for Planet of the Apes, they could have made it a little easier to figure out which one was first, because Dawn and Rise could have both been the first movie. Since it'd been 3 years since the last one came out, I actually did think Dawn was the first and Rise was the second. I got the titles totally mixed up. I know, that's a crazy story, right? That's some pretty insane shit. Things get pretty wild over here, let me tell you what.
Those names really threw me for one hell of a loop. But I'm just going to go ahead and give my biggest complaint about this movie right away, right off the bat. It's the main setting for this, the facility where most of this movie takes place, the little military base where it all goes down, is the most poorly guarded facility on the fucking planet. This base was supposed to be the damn Area 51 of this universe, this incredible government secret that's locked down, no one knows about it, you know, the fucking Fort Knox of fuckery, and yet fucking Walmart has better security than this base had. In one scene, a little girl, the little girl from the trailers, because I'm not going to spoil anything here, she just walks onto the base and starts feeding the apes for about 10 minutes of screen time and no one ever notices her. In another scene, one of the apes walks onto the base to try and attract some attention, but no one notices the ape. He could have walked all the way to the mess hall and ordered a fucking Miller Lite, but if he didn't want piss in a can, he could have ordered anything besides Miller Lite. And the lack of security wasn't for lack of personnel. They had about 200, 300 soldiers on this base at all times. I don't understand how none of them can see people entering through the fucking front doors. They just walked right through the front entrance to this bitch. It was basically just like an open house for a newly on the market townhome. It's just ridiculous how poor the security was there. A piggy bank would have been more difficult to get into. Now, that's my biggest complaint about this movie, is you have to suspend your disbelief that this facility is just, you know, come help yourself, an all-you-can-eat buffet of fucking intruding and burglaring. But other than that, I think it's a very solid film. It is a great story to tell. If you've watched the previous two movies, you've definitely got to watch this one. If you haven't seen the other two movies, I don't think you necessarily need to see them. This has kind of its own self-contained storyline, and everything's kind of spoon-fed to you with what's going on, which is good because it brings a lot of people into it, and it does a good job of doing that. I also like how they didn't make the bad guys just these dehumanized, cartoonishly bad supervillains. They had a lot of motivation behind what they're doing, and you've kind of felt for those characters as well as feeling for the main characters, which are the apes and Caesar. Everything in this movie looked really good, especially the action scenes. I also really like the soundtrack. That stood out to me for once. Usually movie soundtracks don't really tickle my nutsack too hard, but this one really gave it a firm tickling. Thought it was great, fit the mood, and fit every scene beautifully. I will say, though, I think they went a bit overboard with just the stopping and staring at each other scenes in slow motion. There was a whole lot of those in this movie. Just a whole lot of just looking into each other's eyes like you're trying to look into a fucking crystal ball for like 30 uninterrupted seconds. Just went on too long. There were too many of them. But I do think they added a lot to it. I just wish there wasn't so many and they didn't go on so long. And I also wish the military base wasn't set up like a 007 GoldenEye level where there's a bunch of explosive barrels everywhere. The point is, they know they're about to be attacked, yet for some reason they've left all of these oil tankers and explosives right out in the open to just have themselves blown up. That didn't make any sense to me. But if you can suspend your disbelief for the stupidest military base in existence, then this is a very nice conclusion to the trilogy and just a good standalone movie in and of itself. So let's pop this shit into the moist meeting toaster, and we're locked at about a 70% on the moist meter. I thought this was a good movie. I thought it was a good conclusion to the trilogy. I don't think it was as strong as the previous two movies, but I do think people coming into this without seeing the other two are going to like it, and I think it is a nice conclusion for people who have seen the other two, but will probably be let down just a little bit with this one, because there's definitely some strong shortcomings, but overall I do believe it is a very solid film and worth seeing. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Fundamentally, it's the Hubble telescope of movie and video game reviews, because we are able to look into all of this shit and go real deep in it and figure out just how moist a product is. Today on the diving board, ready to do a cannonball into the swimming pool, is however long the end. Let's go ahead and toss Baby Driver into the moisture content analyzer, and we're clocking this at about 88% baby gravy. Now I know 88% just seems like an arbitrary number. I like to go in intervals of 5 because 5% means something. It's half, so it's not quite, not quite the next level and a little above current level. And 88%, that doesn't really mean anything. The difference between an 85% and an 88%